Good morning, and thank you, Stephanie. Yes, we've got a very, very full morning planned here, and again, we want to thank all of our speakers for coming, and we've got several processes that we want to explain to you how this is going to go. We're going to begin by all of our guests here to give us like a brief description about what their job is, what their role is. If they represent an agency, we want them to have the time to explain to you what that agency does and how it pertains, and the piece of the puzzle that that agency puts in for our concerns about the future of Florida with its development of disabled children and adults. We also are very fortunate to have two of our elected officials, our state representatives, up here, and they will be able to tell you a little bit more as their questions are asked, the roles that they play as far as committees and how they see those legislative positions helping us. So we'll have some questions geared toward them too. After they have all done their introductory speeches and their summaries, okay, then we are going to open it up to questions. Here's how that's going to work, and guys, if you've never used this process, trust me, it really works. At your table in the basket, you will have forms. Okay, this is where you write your question. Okay. You will write your question on these, and then you will put on there, and please write legibly because I'm the one that's going to have to read these. Okay, we want you to write your question and then also who you want that question to go to. Okay, when you've completed this, all you have to do is hold it up. All right, and we have runners that are going to be looking for this. They will take your questions and bring them to me. We will try to get to all of these. I can't promise, but we are trying to get to all of them in the time allotted. So we were going to ask, again, our speakers that we will answer the questions that could be answered quickly. Let's answer them quickly, and the ones that need more time, then we hope to allot more time for that. Also, what we will do is if one person gets one of these questions, but if they feel that there is somebody else on the panel that needs to add their opinion and their information, then we can do that as well. So we will get everybody's chance. So in case, Barbara, if you get one, but you think maybe Betty Kay needs to add to it, then we can do that too. We will, all that. Our goal is to get as much information, to get these concerns out, and to give direction to some of these people and to let them hear your concerns. So let's have a good morning here, an interesting morning, and let's hope that we walk out of here with a lot of good positive thoughts and a lot of good direction on where we are going with this concern in the state of Florida. We are going to begin with Suzanne Sewell, if she will give us her introduction. Suzanne. And the mics, take them down and pass them out. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me here today. It's good to be here. Beautiful weather, beautiful faces. So I'm looking forward to a good session, and thank you. I am the president and CEO of the Florida Association of Rehabilitation Facilities. We represent provider agencies across the state of Florida, approximately 65 agencies. We advocate for the business interests of those agencies, and we advocate for the individuals served by the agencies. We develop a legislative platform each year, and we work with the legislature, we work with other stakeholders, and one of our primary goals is to protect resources that will serve individuals with disabilities, and specifically individuals with developmental disabilities. Our members serve not only DD individuals, we serve individuals with all types of disabilities and funding resources such as vocational rehabilitation, Department of Education, and others. I was asked today to talk about managed care and provide some information, but Betty Kay, would you prefer that we do that separately, or do you want me to go ahead and share the thoughts, or go ahead? Okay, all right. Well, we get to start off with a lightweight subject here. There's been a lot of discussion about transitioning the DD program, APD-funded services and resources into managed care. Am I communicating? Do you understand managed care typically having to do with insurance, health services? It's basically the model that's being discussed. Our association has supported a carve-out of DD services, developmental disabilities, or ID services, from managed care transition. We've fought aggressively for that for several years. Overall, my membership still supports that. However, there are some changes that are going on. And what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of the national, the state, and the local perspective, and then we can move from there. The Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, or CMS, seems to be moving aggressively to transition all Medicaid-funded services to a managed care model. And the waiver services that your loved ones are receiving are funded through a home and community-based services waiver, and that is a Medicaid funding source. We've watched this for some time from the state and national level. I attended meetings in October, and hopefully, we were going to hear that, well, we really don't want to go that route. I heard the opposite, and I assume others, Deborah, I know you may be hearing from your national constituents, desire to move forward into managed care. The general thought is Medicaid is broken. It's a fee-for-service structure. Basically, the feds feel they're paying for quantity and not quality of services. We asked questions, looked at what's happening. We see other states are going ahead with this transition. The CMS office has double staff who handle it's called long-term care services and supports that are funded. They're issuing 10 principles in January for managed care for long-term services, and we understand they want to move forward. At the state level, Florida has submitted a Medicaid reform waiver, which is basically a managed care model for federal approval for its state plan services. Now, the services provided here at Key Center are basically a waiver, so this would be the first step to get all state plan services under managed care. That request has been up there, over a year, maybe 2 years now, I think, for some time. There seem to be negotiations going on with the feds about, will Florida go for health insurance exchanges? Will they expand the Medicaid services, and on and on? We understand portions of that waiver have been agreed upon, and there's still dialogue back and forth. If that expansion happens, then what we have in the state with this carve-out, the DD program, I use the analogy, it's like being a postage stamp in the middle of a football field. Can it continue, the carve-out? It can. I think Barbara and others want to see that. I'm sure she'll speak to that. There is the iBudget system that was described by the Senate as this is a type of managed care that you all will have for DD. The House and the legislature, and maybe talking to some others here who want to speak to those issues, has basically supported transitioning DD services into managed care. There are folks in the Senate who seem basically supportive of the concept. Senator Gates, I understand, wants to continue his Medicaid work. But the Senate was strong in saying, no, try iBudgets. Probably the key issue from APD, from our perspective, is there is statutory language that says, as of July 2014, if the APD program does not manage its budget, then there will be a redesign implemented. From everything we hear, that redesign is managed care. I think, and probably, Barbara, you may want to address this some, may already include it, but the budget management under the iBudget process is going to be a key determinant here. As we start hearing lawsuits, challenges, appeals, loss of services, I think there will be a lot of questions about is I budget the answer. As far as providers, I'm aware of 2 groups who have moved forward to set up either provider service networks or some type of mechanism to respond to a managed care model. Do they want to? I don't really think so, but I do think they feel there's a need to be prepared. This is a very complicated, complex system if you're trying to provide services under managed care, and it will take a lot of work. So I think the approach is to be proactive, to try to put together systems so that services can continue. My personal opinion is if this is handled correctly, and it does have to happen, it should be almost seamless in that you should not see a lot of harm, damage, or change. If it's done incorrectly, it'll be a disaster. So I leave with that statement in that you want to make sure if the change has to occur that it's done correctly, it's done in the best interest of your loved ones, and you need to be advocating for the things that are important, such as person-centered planning, individualized services, and community inclusion, those things that are very important. In my last trip to DC, one of these speakers said, "Hey folks, do you want to be at the table or do you want to be on the menu?" So I think most of us in this room would rather be at the table and not, excuse me, not a menu item. So I will conclude with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker would be Deborah Linton, please.
Was me. Okay. I'm Deborah Linton with the ARC of Florida. I serve as their executive director. Next year, the ARC celebrates its 60th birthday of advocacy and service to persons with developmental disabilities in the state of Florida. Each year, we also gather up our membership and come up with a legislative platform and the issues that we'll be talking to folks around the state and especially in Tallahassee about. And I just want to highlight a few of those things for you this morning. Funding is always important to everybody, and I know we have legislators up here, and that's probably what they hear the most about is funding. And I think we all know that the basic belief is our waiver is not adequately funded to meet all the needs of the people who are on the waiver, and certainly isn't funded to meet the needs of people on the wait list. This particular year, we were fortunate to receive some funding of which we're trying to meet the most severe dental needs of people with developmental disabilities around the state. We basically went around and asked all of the regional offices, give us your 5 worst cases. And there is truly, indeed, pain and suffering out there from people not having these needs met. And so we don't feel currently the waiver is adequately funded to help those people who we truly see in pain and suffering each day from this project we're working on. We would like to encourage our state agencies, and I know they do many things, but always a lean management model is necessary. You know, I always say put your money where your heart is, and that's out on the service lines. And I know Barbara's heard me say that and will continue to say that. And I know that they are moving some things around, but we do need money out in the services and on the front lines for her waiver support coordinators who are serving people on the wait list. We also believe that we need a cleaner model of service. I know Suzanne's talking about managed care. The current model, we need regulatory relief, and we're very hopeful that in this past, with this administration, we would see more regulatory relief. And we don't feel that we've had enough of that, and we will continue to push for that because it only drives up the cost of services and makes it more difficult to do services in this state. Our group also supports internet sales tax because we always hear there's not enough revenue in the states, and we're joining with other business concerns around the state, such as the Florida Chamber, who we all know it hurts Florida businesses and the local small businesses when we don't collect internet sales tax, and so we are supportive of that. We're also pushing some legislation this year, and it's to change the term mental retardation to intellectual disability in state statutes. And a lot of times I hear, well, that's just kind of fluff. But you know, the business folks up here and all, we kind of make up our mind what's important, but I do hear from self-advocates, especially younger people, this is important to them. And so we're pushing it on their behalf. Over 40 other states have already changed it in their state statutes. And federally, the federal law has changed with the implementation of Rose's law. So we're going to encourage our state once again to get on board and do that. Just a couple of other very short things. For people who want to come out of institutions and nursing homes, we encourage the state to do that. I know there's been a lot of publicity this year about children in nursing homes. And again, for people who want to move, we encourage our state to do that, as it's expensive to taxpayers if these folks want to move, and support them in the community. We want to protect children with developmental disabilities in the local school systems. Senator Andy Gardner had commissioned a study basically of what was going on with seclusion and restraints in our local schools. And we do find there are inappropriate use of seclusion and restraint techniques, and children do get hurt with that. We don't want to tie the teachers' hands, but in the school systems, we're glad that legislation has passed that they now have to be trained before they implement that. But it's important, and nationally we see a lot of really very sad stories that happen. One of our board members' grandson had both of his hands broken in school. So we're going to continue to fight for, more monitoring of what's going on with seclusion and restraint in our schools. We look forward to working with several of the other groups up here as we move on. As far as the managed care issue, I would be very concerned about that. Our families have gone through so many changes. I mean, every time you turn around, we're hearing something new on your behalf. You know, it was the I-budget, it was the tiers, it was this. And so I'm very concerned about families once again going through major change in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'd like to hear from Betty K. Clements, please.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I'm Betty Kay, and I'm a parent, and I'm a member of the Family Care Council, the local Area 13, and I would like to ask those Family Care Council members in the audience to stand up, just so that those of you who want to join us could contact any one of them today. Then I'm going, okay, I saw Carolyn back there, okay. There's some others, they're working the doors there too. So thank you guys. In 1993, for those of you who may not know much about the Family Care Council, the Florida legislature enacted a law that brought families into the picture to advise, basically to advise Barbara on what the needs were.
And they do.
And so that was one of the prime issues. The other was certainly to get out information, education, and to, again, share with families and others. Also, one of the regulations in the law is that the Family Care Councils meet as a whole. There are 15 Family Care Councils across the state, and we meet every other month as Family Care Council Florida. That's where we're fortunate enough to get APD representation. We've had legislators attend, and we get to come together as a group and share what is going on across the state of Florida. So that is really important. Of course, I'm also very interested that Family Care Council interest would come out of some of the people here in the auditorium today, as we really are recruiting. We need more, feet on the ground. We need to, again, we need to become more involved with our legislative process. That's one of the main things that we are interested in doing. Only you, as family members or individuals with a developmental disability, can really tell them the way it is. It's not complaining, it's not bickering about what you've got, what you don't have, but to let them know just how your individual is involved and what would make life easier, bring about more quality of life to that individual. And together we can be a pretty strong voice, and we have been. So that I encourage, going to the legislators when they're home. It's very good to go into the offices and to meet with them. Take your individual with you. Have them start a relationship. That's what's really important so that we can put a face on this. One of the things that we're doing right now is putting together personal profiles of our individuals that we can take and give to the legislators. Some take them to the schools. You can take them anywhere to kind of tell the story so that they get a feel for just what the needs are and how much our individuals can contribute if they're given the opportunity. I do have a 51-year-old daughter, so let me tell you, I've been in the system for quite a while. She has an intellectual disability. She was on the wait list and in crisis for some time, so I have a real feel for the wait list and also for the waiver, because the waiver has brought our daughter back to a really functioning, she's even working. So I think that, she's employed at Target, and to hear her tell, she's probably running Target. But the fact is that there's so much that can be done with the right services and supports. Community, we need to get out and become familiar with our communities. I'd like to just briefly tell you the legislative platform, and these are just some key issues, and believe me, it's an evolving. We will probably be adding to it after we listen to everybody today. But one of the things regarding the wait list that we're hoping to go and present to the legislature this year is that in 2013, we'd like to have them consider taking individuals with parents or caregivers over 70 years of age. These are crises waiting to happen. And then crisis, of course, is more expensive, and it is a crisis, and therefore the individual is put through an amount of suffering that really could be avoided because they would have the supports and know what's going on. Also, I believe that Barbara, and this is something that was done last year and got into a bill that didn't go anywhere. But one of the things we'd like to do for family care councils is the fact that right now it's individuals with a developmental disability, parents or guardians. We'd like to see that expanded to include grandparents. Many grandparents would make wonderful family care council members. And they do come, but they cannot become a governor-appointed member. Unpaid caregivers and legal representatives also. They have a very close relationship. They would be very well able to speak for these individuals. Another, of course, is, as has been said and Deborah said, to preserve and maintain funding on the Medicaid waiver to protect health and safety of individuals being served, but also to allow full community inclusion and participation in the community. Regarding the I-budget and the managed care issue, one of the things that we would like to see is that 1 full year of implementation of the I-budget, and remember that the I-budget will not be rolled out until the end of 2013, so that 1 year after that, in other words, giving a full evaluation of its effectiveness or taking before taking alternative action, and that's the action that was mentioned earlier. Also, we've been hearing that there's been, I believe, the DD Councilman Margaret Hooper, when she gets here, she's a little bit late, will probably speak about it, but there is a transportation disadvantage program being looked at using vouchers for employment and readiness for employment. And that's one of the things that we would like to see go forward. Other than that, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Barbara Palmer.
Good morning. First of all, let me tell you how very excited I am to be here, and not just to tell you a few things that I have to say, but mainly I want to hear from you. There's no doubt that you all, everyone in this state, has been going through a lot of turmoil for the last probably 5 or 6 years. A lot of turnover of people. And before I get into what we're doing with the agency, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. You can read in here the synopsis, but I want you to know that when I finished graduate school, the first job I had was to help transition people from Sunlands out into the community. And there was no formula. There was no pattern of how that was to work. But I have spent my life doing a lot of different things, and I feel like I've come all the way around back home with better skills, certainly a few more years on me, so I've got more experience. But I can tell you my dedication and my commitment to making things better for you and for your loved ones could not be stronger. I am here for the duration to make things better. And so let me tell you what our goals are. And there were a lot of things that were discussed that probably will require more detail when we get into questions. But we have 4 main initiatives in this agency. And the first and the most important one is fiscal accountability. And the reason for that is because we have no respect in the legislature. We have no respect from a lot of you. And the reason is because of all the changes that have taken place and because we can't seem to ever stay within our budget. Well, since I've been here, I realize and I understand why. Because every time you think you get close, you have crises that come. In crisis, I haven't turned one down. I can't. You can't turn down people that are in situations like that. But what we can do is we can plan better. And my background is in planning, and my background is in strategic planning, and that's what we've done in this organization. We have put together a strategic plan for this organization that does process mapping for every single function in this organization. And by that, let me give you an example. Licensing, for example, for our providers. We were doing it 14 different ways, and in some cases different within each area. And it wasn't the area's fault, it's because nobody had taken the time to really come up with a way that we all should do it. So if somebody moves from one area to another area, it's the same. And that's the way it should be. So we're doing that throughout the entire agency. And in doing that, we have actually increased the efficiencies. We're about halfway through. And we're doing it from the bottom up, starting with the service, the person that is impacted. What happens when they apply for anything? What piece of paper, what do you do with it, where does it go, so on, all the way up. We're now almost finished doing all of that in the regional offices, and then we will take that and the central office will adjust to that. As opposed to top down, we're doing from bottom up because that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's exactly what Deborah Linton was talking about, that we have got to put our resources, our energy, and our efforts on the front lines, not in building up Tallahassee. Right now, we have a 3.4% administrative overhead. There aren't very many businesses that have a 3.4% administrative overhead. And if you want to talk about going to managed care, I don't know where they're going to get the profits to be able to maintain it. So, you know, there are a lot of issues that are much more difficult to look at than just improving the system. Improving it means getting in there and knowing and really understanding what all the issues are. So the first one, as I said, is fiscal accountability. And I want to tell you this, for the first time since this agency was established 8 years ago, we will not be in a deficit. We will be within our budget. We have a $17 million carryover deficit from years before, which the governor has already indicated that he is going to recommend that that one-time expenditure, because it's non-recurring dollars, be paid for. We will then be fiscally sound. Now, when you become fiscally sound, you have the ability to go to the legislature and say, yes, guess what? It's time now that we do more for employment. It's time now that we do stuff on the wait list. It's time now that we do some technology that we desperately need. Do you know that people out in the field have 140 spreadsheets that they use to keep up with stuff? We have no integrated technology. So you can see the needs that we have in order to supply you better services are the things that we're trying to get us to the point where we can actually ask for. That's the credibility I'm talking about. And for the first time, we will be in that situation because of iBudget and because of a lot of providers that have been willing to step up to the plate and have reduced their rates. Some of them didn't really want to. Some of them did it voluntarily. But we are at the point now where we can move forward with dignity. And that's really important. So that's with the fiscal accountability. We're going to stay the course. We're going to do that. The iBudget is halfway through. So we've got the rest of this year, and I think, as Betty Kay said, if we can take a year, you all have had so many changes. You cannot possibly keep up with all of the things that are going on in your lives. We need to stabilize things, and that's what this iBudget will do. And we're going to be putting in some very good technology so that you can keep up with it. This is an opportunity for you to manage your money. The flexibility within the iBudget gives you that. The second priority is employment. Everybody has different levels of employability, but employment must be first. Instead of figuring out, or when people give people money for services, figuring out all these services that people need, let's try to do what we can to help the families and help these individuals get jobs, meaningful jobs. So we're doing a lot of things. One thing we're doing for the first time that's ever been done that I know of is every state agency that touches anybody's life in the developmental disabilities arena that affects employment have been meeting. We've had 2 meetings, and that means VR, DEO, DOE, all the acronyms, as you know, out there. Any agency, we've all come together because we're never going to solve this until we're all working together. And I don't mean just state agencies. I mean all the associations that are up here. If we march in this year for the first time, all lockstep, singing Kumbaya, going after the same thing, we'll get it. We will get it, okay? But employment, I can't figure out where all the money is. Every agency, some get grants, some get direct money, some get this. I mean, if I can't figure it out, how in the world can you figure it out? So we're going to process map every dime that comes into this state for employment purposes. And we're going to make that public for everybody. We're going to see how we need to streamline that. How can we maximize those dollars to draw down more dollars and provide more opportunities? Now, with that, and the third thing, the wait list. Unbelievable, 22,000 people on the waiting list. How many people in here are on the waiting list? Well, I can tell you, my heart is with you. I personally read every crisis, okay, that comes to me. And I know how hard it is for some people. And we're going to change that. One of the things that we're working on now, and I've actually had the opportunity to share it with the Family Care Council and with Deborah Linton at ARC, is a method that we will, and there's a lot more work that has to be done because we don't have the answers. They have the answers. You have the answers. And that is, how do we, let's say we got a bunch of money to take people off the wait list, which I don't know whether we will or not. How do you take them off? What's the priority? We can't just ask for it and not have a plan. So we have a plan that we're putting together now that will give people, we're working on it now, so that we will be able to do that. We know what the priorities are. The first things, of course, are those people that are in crisis. That's a given. Then you've got those that are in the child welfare system. If somebody wants to adopt one of our developmentally disabled individuals, we need to make that a priority. The second, those with intensive needs. And those with intensive needs are the ones that are coming up to crisis and they almost make it and then they go back. And then they almost make it. They're all just borderline crisis. And we have over 2,000 of those, okay? We've got about 300 or so in the child welfare, 2,000 in this category. Then we have parents aging out, which somebody already mentioned, those over 70. Actually, I bet you at least half of what I approve are parents aging out. Because what happens is when they age out, they become homeless. Now you think about this, not only is that person homeless, but they've lost their parents. They have to transition to some place that is just probably very traumatic. We need to be doing more planning for those people. So that's the next category. Those are the categories, in my opinion. Then you've got those that are aging out of school. And that's where the employment piece really has to come in. We've got to come in there at age 16, 17, 18, put resources in there for those that are in that category. So we're putting a plan together to do all of that so that there will be a way that we can take people off in a meaningful way. But the other thing that we're doing, I think, that is really important is we have expanded our community outreach. And in that, we're putting one dedicated person. I'm trying to get another one. And we're taking the MIG people that we're working on employment. So we'll have at least 2, maybe 3 people whose sole purpose in life will be to go out there and find community resources. We're putting a resource directory together, and I've made a pledge it will be, and I'm telling you, it will be the best in the country. We're gonna put it so that whatever, we're gonna have links to all kinds of things, but most important is that we want a search engine on this so that if you can go in and you say, you know, I have cerebral palsy, I'm non-ambulatory, my interests are, I want to work in technology or whatever, what will happen is it'll pop up and say, in your area, here are places where you can go to look for employment. And we're going to have a one-stop shop. We don't know whether it's going to be in our agency or whether it will be at Voc Rehab or whether it will be at Economic Opportunity, where it will be, but there will be a one-stop shop where employers can go to find people and where people that want jobs can go. My understanding, and I don't know this for a fact, but that in January or February, the federal government may be finalizing their rules that are going to require anybody, any company that has any kind of contract with the feds, that they will have to employ at least 7% of people with developmental disability. I think it's all disabilities. That hasn't happened yet, but if that happens, if I had my own business for 16 years, I couldn't tell you where I'd go. How do you find somebody? I mean, how do you really do that? So we've got to make it very easy for businesses to find people and match them with the abilities of the people that we know, and we know they have great abilities. But we've got to distinguish those abilities so people know where to go find them. And then the last thing is quality service. And quality service is what I was talking about before. You can't operate anything with 140 spreadsheets. You know, I ask for an incident report, and these are incidents where people are either raped or they have eloped from their facility or they've, in some cases, been killed. I should be able to know instantly, every day, all of that. It took 3 weeks for me to get a report, a comprehensive report. That is ridiculous. So our technology needs have to be centered, but in order to do that, we have to process map everything. We've got to know exactly what we want. What kind of information do we need in order to get the data to look at things? I've also put together put in place a fraud division, and I think it's very important because if people are cheating our agency, they're cheating you. And that money could be better served someplace else. So those are the main things that we're working on right now. I promise you, I am totally dedicated to helping you, and I am not going to be offended by any question you ask or anything you want to tell me, because I want to make it better. And I promise you and I pledge you I will spend all my energy and efforts to try to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Now we'll hear from our legislators. First is Representative Jimmy Smith.
Good morning, and thank you for having us here. You know, I had to say, it's nice to hear the head of an agency has the vast wealth of knowledge you do, Barbara. That is very impressive because, you know, everybody comes to the legislators and said, well, what do you think about this and what do you think about that? Be it health care, be it jobs, education. It's just such a broad spectrum of issues that we cannot be subject matter experts. Where we deal with the best as your state legislator is to provide the connectivity in the community to the agencies, to make laws that we feel are best going to positively affect the communities, regardless of what that particular issue is. One of the examples is, don't cough on it too much. One of the examples is we have an ever-increasing healthcare budget. It's never went down. And every single year, more and more services are required. And we struggle to make sure that we find the people in charge of the agencies so we can fund them properly. Because I'll give you an example. In the Office of Early Learning, they had a 10% fraud, waste, and abuse issue. They had a $1 billion budget. 10% is $100 million. Okay? They couldn't track. That's where there's a dilemma. Dealing with the issue of being a legislator and trying to fund everything properly, we need to make sure that all the dollars are specifically going where they're supposed to. And that's why we make a lot of the decisions we do. But the other part of the job is just as important as being your connection. You know, truthfully, a lot of people say, well, the legislators, they don't care. I know there's probably a lot out here shaking their head and say, yep, I've thought the same thing. Truth is we don't know what your problem is if you don't come and talk to us. We all have, phone lines, emails, and we have an office that you can come and meet us or our staff at so we can discuss the issues, so we can get to it. But a lot of time, there's a stoic attitude from constituent who get angry, who gets frustrated and thinks nobody cares. And then from people in the legislature that is so actively involved in so many areas, you can't just focus on one issue. The best thing to do is be engaged, like she said. In the past 2 years, I know the senator and myself have fought to make sure that when there were cuts right away with the new governor, that we explained to him, you can't do this. This is one of the most vulnerable populations in our district specifically. You cannot do this. This would be drastic. And in that, he heard what we said. We also work to make sure that those concerns with the agencies are properly addressed through the proper technique. And in that, we also discuss to the constituents what we truly could and couldn't do. It's not an open checkbook. We can't just stroke a check. Matter of fact, that as a legislator isn't my job. It's to make sure we do annual funding for agencies. But cutting through the red tape is very important. And that's why we're both here, to make sure we can do that. We talk about the I-budget and managed care. Because truthfully, prior to that, at the larger level, nobody was sitting down with a plan saying, here's something that we can do to funding. You can't just come to the legislator and say more money. Especially, as an example before, when there was a debt of $17 million. Best business practices must be in effect at all times to convince fellow legislators of the importance, for one, but also the fact that the dollar, each and every dollar, is being used properly. Now this year, there's a slightly unique aspect to the Florida House. 2 of our leadership members have children with learning disabilities, developmental disabilities. So you can have no doubt that leadership in the Capitol does have a better understanding, not as legislators, but as parents. So when we come up and we talk with Barbara and we sit down, we talk to my fellow legislators, you can be assured that when you hand a packet of best management practices, fiscal frugality, and the true needs, that the leadership in the Florida House, and that being the Capitol as well, will truly understand that these are what we need to do to fix. There was a talk about regulatory relief. If we can cut red tape, I'm all for it. I think any legislator is. The hardest thing is, it's easy to say we want to cut the red tape. It's harder to say, here's a specific statute that must be cut. Because when we do, what we find is the unintended consequences jumps up 2 or 3 years later and bites you in the butt. And it sounds like you made a great decision at that point, and it's, you know, something politicians will get up and brag about. And then 2 or 3 years later, you found you made a bad decision. And we don't want to do that. If we're going to cut red tape, I'm all for it. But it needs to be clear, concise, and it needs to have a long-term vision to it. Now, some of you may or may not know that I personally have been working on career and technical education as a personal passion for young people in the community as a whole. And as we were talking about employment opportunities, you know, we already have success stories in this community where people have come from the Key Training Center and have jobs. Our community grasps that. And hopefully we're the example for the state of Florida as a whole, how people with developmental disabilities can be active participating members in the community. Part of that, though, is within our standard education system, it's not just dealing with students in the fashion of how to handle unruly students. It's actually saying you, the education system, need to direct people towards more career and technical education so that everybody who goes to school can come out with a skill set, regardless of what level, so that they can get a job. And working on career and technical education, that has been one of my passions and will continue to be. Now, I have to tell you, I'm very adamant that I'm proud to see that Barbara has really taken hold and balanced the budget. It will be easier to support her when she comes in front of the House and asks for more from the state budget. And what you need to do, though, is continue to reach out to the agencies, be it state or the locals, and also come into my office. Come into the senator's office, sit down, and talk about the specifics. Not only of this is a problem, we get our best suggestions on how to fix things, not from other legislators, but from the community. If you can come in and say, you know, Senator, Representative, I have a suggestion on how to fix this. It may not be the entire system, this one particular item, because we are not subject matter experts on this. You are. And when you leave it up to us to come up with the answers for ourselves, that is unfortunately why you end up in a situation we quite often do where we make big mistakes. I'm reaching out to you to tell you that as I close here, it is also your duty to represent your families, your friends, but to represent them also with solutions. Here's a problem. Representative Smith, this may not be perfect, but let's talk about this as a possible answer. And in that, we can provide better services. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Smith. Now we will hear from Senator Charlie Dean.
Good morning. My schedule has been on again and off again, so I'm on again, so I'm here this morning. First, I'd like to say that it's been a pleasure to work in the Florida Senate and represent District 3. Until this year of redistricting, I had 13 counties, the largest Senate district east of the Mississippi River. You pack your bags and you leave and you go to Tallahassee and you go back, end up to Baker County. It's a feat when we start looking at how many people we serve and where we touch. Currently in the new district, I have 10. I've lost Leon, Jefferson, and Madison, Hamilton, and Taylor County. I picked up Union County and Gilchrist County. So the balance is now 10. I'm chairman of the Environmental Conservation and Preservation Committee in the Florida Senate, serve on Criminal Justice General Committee, also on Criminal Justice Appropriations, Gaming, General Government Appropriations, the Department of Family Services Committee, and Homeland Security and Veterans Affairs. My experience over the last few years, and I've been there since '07, is that in every community, in every county that I represent, we had persons that had organizations pertaining to or representing persons with disabilities. It's been my pleasure to work with those good folks. Some of them are a little astonished that where I'm from and that I know so much about the Key Center. I was on the committee, president of the association that hired Chet Cole. That tells you really how old I am. As we look forward to this year in the budget, as we have in the past, we clearly understand that as we do our ballot budget in the state of Florida, that we certainly have to have priorities in doing that. This morning, while I was drinking a little coffee at the breakfast table, I happened to notice an article in the St. Bede Times, and I certainly don't think that that's my staff of belief in life, but I do read them. We're talking about the physical impact of 212 and the federal spending at a total of $3.25 trillion. Of that, $762 billion went to Social Security, $469 billion for Medicare insurance for 65 and over in the population, and $51 billion for Medicaid insurance for the poor, and 2/3 of all of that goes for long-term care for aged and disabled people. Folks, that's where we're headed again this year. I try to keep up with this cliff idea and where it's going to go and what's going to happen the next few days. We've been on a cliff ever since I've been in the legislature. We've been on a cliff every time I've met with anybody, family members of people with disabilities. So I want to say that as we enter our new year and we start our committees tomorrow, that also we have true deficit in the state of Florida, as Director Palmer said. We hope that we can cover those areas and bring into reality and real being the balance in the budget. That would make such a difference to our families and to those folks that I serve in those 10 counties that have a commitment to our families and those persons in need. With that, I'm going to listen to your questions. I'm going to write down notes, and when we get off this stage, if you have a personal situation, come to me and we'll discuss it. If there's something I can direct and help in or give you an answer, I'll do it. If it's something that's going to be voted on in Tallahassee, I'm not a newcomer to the process. I've been in this business a long time, and I've particularly been in the business of serving you, our needs of those with disabilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Dean. We welcome Margaret Hooper. And this is your chance, Margaret, to give us just an introduction and a brief overview of your organization and how it is pertaining to the future of Florida and how it approaches those families dealing with developmental disabilities.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm Margaret Hooper. I'm the Public Policy Coordinator for the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council. And we have 30 council members. We're just getting some new council members that the governor has appointed on our council. We are federally funded through the Developmental Disabilities Act, and every state has a Developmental Disabilities Council. And what we are charged to do is to work on including people with developmental disabilities in the community by working with policymakers and by also implementing grant funding for programs that will build the capacity for people to be included in the community. And every year we come up with a legislative platform, which I have in some folders in the back table, of things that are going to be priorities for us to work on this year. And you've probably heard, we share some similar initiatives. We're supporting at least no reductions in the Agency for Persons with Disabilities budget. We are supporting some movement on the waiting list because we have, as you probably many of you in this room know, over 21,000 people on the waiting list. We would like to give the I-budget, and I'm saying we, this has been voted on the council members, and as staff, I'm urged to let you all know about that. And what we're working on is encouraging people to give the I-budget a try. It's about 50% rolled out, and we think it's a good alternative to some of the other redesign ideas out there that could be more for-profit managed care, for example, that we're worried about that. So we would like to give the I-budget a fair shot. We think it's based on sound principles. And we, on the other end of the spectrum, we work to build capacity for Early Steps, which is an early intervention program for children 0 to 3, who, if you can help children meet their milestones that have a developmental delay, they may not need as many services as they go forward and have a better chance of being able to work and live by themselves and do things for themselves. We are working with, I'm working with ARC and Florida Association for Rehab Facilities and the agency to strengthen employment possibilities for people with developmental disabilities, and both as they get out of the school system and as adults. So those are some of the highlights of our platform. Another one that I feel particularly passionate about personally is minimizing restraint and seclusion of children with disabilities in the public school system. And we've done come a long way actually in the last few years, working with the legislature on getting reporting in statute, making sure parents are notified if their child is restrained or secluded in the public school system. And now there's actually a charge for school districts to come up with a plan on how they will reduce restraint and seclusion in their communities. And so all of those provisions have been very positive. But we have others. I'm not going to go on and on because we have several other priorities too regarding transportation and health care, but they're up there for you in the folders. Thank you all.
Thank you. At this time, we will begin answering questions. Again, if you want to fill your questions out and send them up here. And I will begin with the first one for Deborah Linton. What would the impact to services, what would the impact to persons with developmental disabilities if further reductions take place in the home and community-based services waiver?
I mean, that's hard to tell family by family. One thing that could happen is people have to choose institutionalization, which is not a good choice for the Florida taxpayer. And we also think our communities are enriched when families are here in the community like they are and attending places like Key Training Center. For others, it could be, you know, we had one lady, she didn't have a whole lot of services anyway. People weren't keeping up with her, and she stayed in the home with her father's body for 3 days without anybody even knowing that. She didn't know he had passed away. And so then you're in crisis. And I think what happens when we have further and further reductions in funding, we see people become placed in more and more desperate situations because they don't have adequate supervision or adequate services to protect their health. And so I think it's just a snowball effect. We have more people in crisis and more people institutionalized.
Thank you. Our next question is for Barbara Palmer. With the push for employment, what is the plan for persons not able to be employed? I think this says under the I-budget, so not being
Under the I-budget. Well, the I-budget really doesn't have any direct impact on employment because it's an option for people whether they want to be employed, basically. But we want to try to do everything we can to help them be employed. It's interesting somebody asked that question like that because, and I'm hesitating to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. And it may not be the most popular thing for some people for me to say this, but I think being realistic, there are different degrees of employability. And some people honestly cannot be employed unless there is a, 2-to-1 ratio. I mean, literally 2 people helping somebody do it. And actually, we cannot afford that. So what do we do with people that cannot be employed to the point where they can be self-sufficient in their employment? Well, I feel like with our ADTs, now I'd like to hear how you feel, to be honest with you, but I feel like at the ADTs, we need to have meaningful, now my background, by the way, my master's degree is in therapeutic recreation, so you know what I'm thinking. I really believe there is very meaningful activities that enhance a person's life through recreation and through leisure service. Maybe you don't get paid for it, but by golly, it does enhance your life, and it provides the family an opportunity to have respite. So I think there is at the federal level, I don't know if that's a real popular thing, because that would not be considered an employment initiative, but I think it's realistic.
Some families, they're just a necessity. That's all that there is, and therefore, that's why you need to go to your legislators and explain. It's any number of different reasons. It might well be that that's what allows you and your husband, or you or your husband, to be employed, or for all of the doctor's appointments and things that you may have, that it's respite of a sort, but it's also something that is of value to the individual. It is, therefore it should be meaningful. And what we have to do is come together, again, think outside the box, come up with suggestions as to how you think there might be programs out there that could work for these programs, but they are absolutely essential. And I think that Barbara has recognized that. I know that when Mike Hansen was there, he visited some of these and talked with families who had an inability to put ADT into their budget, and was able to really visualize what that meant to an individual family. So it's you telling your story that is going to help that situation. And I think Barbara has something else to say.
Yeah, I forgot about something. I wanted to tell you that I went to the faith-based symposium that took place a couple months ago, and we've made a connection with an organization, and it doesn't really matter what faith you are, or even if you don't go to church. What they do is they have an organization that we're going to have with our resource directory and our external affairs piece, where people volunteer, and they have like resources for where people can go to get transportation. Let's say you didn't quite have enough in your budget or whatever, or you're on the waiting list, and there might be some festivals or whatever going on where people volunteer to help families. And it's a very sophisticated system. They've got it all over the country. So we're going to actually start that this year for people on the wait list and the waiver. What was the question? No, I just use that as an example. It could be respite, it could be all kinds of things. And Betty Kay, by the way, is doing something very, very interesting. She and several other people are working on a not-for-profit organization that is going to work on a program called Ticket to Work. And some of you probably know what that is. The idea of that is to get people employed to the point where they can get off Social Security and really be self-sufficient. We need to be doing that for people. They need to be self-sufficient if it's possible. And it shouldn't be a threat to people if they can get those kinds of jobs. But what will happen with that is the FCC, through this other organization, the federal government will help them. If you can get people off Social Security, they will help give them some money so that they can then use it for respite and transportation and some other needs. So I really commend Betty Kay and several of the other folks in her organization for doing that.
Okay, Barbara, keep the mic here. This one's for you. What plans are being made for necessary changes in services for aging consumers, for example, dementia, which interferes with meaningful day training?
Well, you know that, I'll tell you, I'll throw something else in with that. It's people with dual diagnosis, people that have mental illness along with developmental disability, and then we have this with the aging. One of the things that we have not done well in government, I don't think, is working together. And we've been working in silos, and this governor has made it very clear that we are not to work in silos and that we are to be working together. So that is happening, and I will be working more with that agency. I have not done as much as I should be, to be honest with you. But the bottom line is we have signed any organization, any agency that touches children in any way, DCF, us, DJJ, DOE, all of those organizations have signed an agreement to share information, which is has been a very big problem. So we can share information with each other, and also have signed an agreement that we will work collaboratively with each other, and it's working great right now. We staff people that have a dual diagnosis. We are staffing now. It's just new, and Clarence can probably tell you about some of it here. We're staffing people that have dual diagnosis with DCF. We need to do the same thing with the Agency for Elder Affairs.
Thank you. This question is for Suzanne Sewell. How are clients expected to access services under managed care without help of case managers?
So I understand the question, how are individuals to access services under managed care without the help of case managers? Okay. All of the models that I've looked at, the different arrangements, case management is included as a component. I think it's usually best if it's done independently from the actual managed care entity, but there are various models, arrangements. I think that any model that would be approved by the state of Florida would definitely contain that component in some shape or fashion.
This question is for Margaret Hooper. How can all of the DD organizations and associations work together toward a common goal for persons with developmental disabilities when you have two sets of thinking, one for total inclusion and the other for stable and secure environments?
And what was the second one?
For stable and secure environments.
Well, we meet regularly with our stakeholders and talk about ways that we can all work together. In fact, the end of January, we're having our yearly consortium where we all come together and from different groups, Family Care Council, Florida Association for Rehab Facilities, and we share our agenda items, our legislative agenda. And then we see on what areas we have in common that we can work together. Now, the other people that are promoting a safe and secure environment, you know, we're charged under the Developmental Disability Act to include people in the least restrictive manner into the community. And I think what we would like to see happen is to make sure that those options are safe and secure. So I think we all share a concern of safety and security for this vulnerable population. And I think there are ways to have safe and secure communities that aren't totally segregated per se, that include other people, relatives, family, maybe even people who are retired. We've seen several models like that throughout the state. Also, there's a lot of people that live in family with other families that want to take them people on that don't have any families to be part of their family, family and foster care kind of models. But I think people should be able to rent an apartment if possible, buy a home, and be assured that they will have the kind of oversight and support to keep them safe and secure. So there are a lot of different options.
Thank you. This is a question for Deborah Linton. How can some of the overburdensome government regulations for providers be reduced while ensuring accountability?
Well, I'd like to say we've had several. Suzanne's sitting here next to me, and she has participated in several work groups, task force, regulatory relief. We've done it. There are stacks and stacks of recommendations. The Florida House had a website where you could go, and my members went there and uploaded recommendations. I know Senator Thrasher visited our places, and we gave him stacks of recommendations. If you look at this waiver, and the handbook which regulates this waiver, and then look at the other waivers in the state, you'll see this is one of the most complex systems ever imagined. And what happened was we built a house a long time ago, and then we just kept adding floors onto it. And we never really went back and redesigned. Now we're in the middle of that with the iBudget, but we're still running a dual system right now. So it's like, well, yes, you're under the iBudget, but no, you're under the old waiver. So. And these things are important to us because we want to meet the regulations, because we're in a payback situation if we don't. But even your Medicaid Program Integrity Office would tell you it's just bizarre. We're under one regulation, one handbook for one waiver, one handbook for another waiver, and it really has to stop. We want to deliver services. We want to be accountable. We want to be honest business people. We don't like paybacks. But there are lots of gotchas in our system, and we have shared those with our legislators. We have shared those in Tallahassee, not since Barbara's been here, but Suzanne, I want you to shake your head. You've been on those task force with me. We've given several recommendations.
Sure. This is really important, very important point, because you got people in tiers, you have people that are on half of iBudget, people that are not, and we have, I think, almost maybe 3 handbooks. I mean, but the new handbook for iBudget is coming out very soon, and every place I go, people tell me exactly what Deborah just said. And so when it comes out, we've tried to accommodate the comments that we've gotten already, but it's at ACA right now to come out publicly for public comment. Now that's the important piece. That when that comes out, we really need to hear, because believe me, I am one of these people, I do not believe in a bunch of bureaucratic stuff. You know, if we can streamline it and make it better, we need to do that. So when that comes out, I know your associations will be talking to me, but you need to be talking to them so that they can get the right message to us.
Thank you. This one's directed to both of our legislators. Would you be willing to sponsor legislation to give cities and towns a financial incentive to hire the developmentally disabled? Flip a coin, whichever one of you want to go first.
All right. To simplify, basically, is there a way to incentivize it? And that would, of course, be in the term of possibly tax breaks for businesses who want to get out and hire and assist in that fashion. And if we can come up with some decent language, I have no problem doing it. Matter of fact, I had written that question down, let's see, it's 3rd down on my list of 10 so far. But yeah, I think we want to get people to have a quality of life, because actually employment is a quality of life as well. But also by having them employed and giving them the skills, it helps the entire system. So yes, if we can come up with good language that would, contrary to the federal government that mandates you do it at a certain level, but incentivizes you to do it, I'd gladly support that.
Senator Dean?
My opinion, I think a lot depends on the incentive that we have to be able to do this. Not so much make somebody do it, but do it on the assessment of their abilities and the case management that we've established, that we know what they're capable of doing. If we do that and then framework the employment around that, then I think we're really getting something done.
Thank you. This one's for Suzanne Sewell. What can parents and guardians do to help prepare if their child's DD services are changed to managed care system?
Let me make sure I have the question. You're asking if your child's services are changed to managed care, what would be the impact? Is that basically? Mhm. That's probably a question that we could speculate on all day. Under a managed care system, savings are usually realized by, controlling utilization or rates paid. Those are two ways to work with. It will be tremendously important if this model should come through, or this transition, that there are principles in place, and I alluded to the things that you value: person-centered, community inclusion, medical necessity, having those needs met. So how can I say that a child's service needs would be changed? I can't tell you that today. If done correctly, it could be better. It could be more looking at individually, making some decisions. This person would benefit better from this service plan, and you would not necessarily have the silos and some of the restrictions. But if you're under a model, and this is to me the concern about going with the privatized model, say walking into a standard HMO provider and saying, hey, we're giving you so much, per person, you figure out how to cut costs and make a profit your shareholders, that could be very harmful. So my answer would be stay involved, look at what's happening from the federal and the state level, and if this does have to happen, look to people who understand the population. Provider service networks, I think, are preferable to going to a standard privatized HMO. So stay tuned and stay involved, and if this does have to happen, it should not be harmful. It should be done in the right manner. That's probably about the best I can answer, okay?
Thank you. Betty Kay, I think this is probably a continuation of that, but the question is, what is the best way for parents and guardians to advocate for their loved ones' needs?
Oh, the best ways.
Well, certainly, I think I've mentioned, getting with your legislators and everything, but maybe first it's locking into a way in which you are getting the information and education that you need. In other words, staying close with, if you're on the wait list, I know it's more of a problem to keep in touch with, say, the agency office, but the phone rings there, you can still get somebody there. I know in Area 13, Clarence is there. He'll get back with you. That's one way, direct. You have an issue or a concern and would like to know more about it. We meet once a month. We meet, the Family Care Council meets. We've been meeting at the APD area office for years. What we're doing differently now is that about every other month, we're going to take a Family Care Council meeting and have it in another county. We were just in Lake County last month. So you do need to either call to the office to find out when our meetings are, or check the websites. Also, check the papers. It's put in all of the papers here, and they have been very good across Area 13 as to advertising our meetings. So coming to a meeting, maybe just to find out what do we all talk about, what do we do at the meetings, and how could you be maybe a part of it, but how could you, lock into some of that information. Again, sometimes you've heard that say something is going on with a particular service, and you have a question about it. One of the best ways is coming to our meetings. The APD staff even attend our meetings even when we are in another county. And very often you have an issue that you're discussing with us as a group. It turns out that Clarence or someone can pick up on it, have you meet with them, and a particular issue can be done. The other way in advocating is to, look, you may have parent groups. There may be other groups in your area. Join them. you'll start to know. I found that what it did for me was it really gets you more into understanding what's going on with everyone else in the developmental disabilities, not just your particular individual, but certainly having an older child when I really got into the system, it took an awareness of just what is out there with the youth and with all that's happening with developmental disabilities as they're being diagnosed and as our individuals are living longer. So, again, getting with your your legislators, that's just key. That is really key if you have an issue. Because hopefully Family Care Council has been working with them as well, and they can maybe even tell you how you could get with the council. So, we are recruiting, so this is a good opportunity to say that we really would like to have you come to our meetings. Advocacy is what it's all about. We do have information and things. We have forums. That's one of our major goals. So maybe we can talk later if you have a particular issue.
Okay, this question is for Barbara Palmer. What will happen to CDC Plus under iBudget and managed care?
CDC Plus will roll into iBudget last, but it will be, did this go off? Okay. Miami is the last region that will roll in, and then CDC Plus will roll in, and it will not be treated any differently than any other area. As far as managed care is concerned, I lobbied for 35 years. It was part of my private business that I had, and when I also lobbied for Florida State University, and one of the things I lobbied for was managed care. I represented the HMO associations. So I understand managed care. I don't really understand how it's going to affect this this group, but we have a team within APD that are looking at every single aspect of this. We are looking at every state that has done it, to what extent they've done it, what success, and so far we haven't found any states that can declare total victory, but we will know the answers, because I can tell you the senator and representative could very easily ask me the question that somebody just asked: what will managed care do to the people you serve? I've got to be able to answer that question, and so we're doing that research now.
I have two questions here I'm going to combine for Representative Smith because they both deal with education. It says, young adults who reach the age 22 without a job fall off a cliff. Are there any programs in vocational centers or community colleges where they can continue practicing employability skills? And I'm coupling this with, is the state going to add more technical training in high schools instead of insisting every child is going to college?
Well, to the first part, I don't have a clear answer. I can't tell you at this point if after 22 years, if there are additional programs. That, of course, is something I'll take that question and move forward with when we're done here. As far as career and technical education, it's been a passion of mine since I got elected, actually, as a young man growing up in this community. So it is my goal to get away from that everybody must go to college mentality. And surprisingly, what I'm finding is I talk to more and more legislators is they're in line with that also. But the problem is we need to have a change of attitude of what the education system is for. And I've been pushing for the aspect of career development. Why do you go to school? You get a high school diploma so you can get a job. So regardless of what your particular situation or status in life, that's what education should be doing, getting you ready for a job. Why do you go to college? To get a better job. Okay? Why do you get a master's degree? To be in charge of an agency. Okay? There are different levels of education, and we want to make sure, or I'm pushing to make sure, our education system is doing that. Not only teaching proper mathematics and proper reading and writing skills, but for the purpose of making sure we have employability. Because when people have jobs, you tend to fix almost all other social issues.
Just a short add to that. I've been an advocate for a long time of the fact that we need to coordinate between what we see as higher education and career skills. And I think once we touch that event, and we particularly do that with our, used to be our community college, now our colleges, that we have serving our communities, we're going to do a better job then of developing a workforce that is meaningful, prepared, and accountable. And I feel that my experience going back, not everybody wants to jump in and do that when they're 18 years old. I didn't know which way to go when I was 18. But the bottom line is, many times we find our folks that are getting into, let's say, mid-20s or late 20s, early 30s, are then serious about skills and serious about jobs and serious where they want to go, that we have the opportunity to develop those and give them not only those opportunities to work with an advantage of having the training, but then an educational benefit, associate arts degree, et cetera, that goes along with it, develop their skills and their educational background. I think that's an opportunity we can continue to pursue, and I think it'd be effective for all of us, more particularly for those that have specific disabilities, that have certain skills that we could touch and help.
Thank you. This one's for Barbara Palmer. How do we get APD's budget increased?
Ask these two gentlemen. I think Betty Kay has kind of summarized it, or everybody down here really is saying you've got to stay involved. You need to talk to your local legislators. You need to, and I mean, everybody's been saying that, but I can't tell you how important that is. You know, you've got these associations that advocate for you, but believe me, these guys would rather hear from you. They don't want to hear from the association, they want to hear from you. You're who they represent. So be sure you are respectful of their time, go in there and be organized about what you're going to ask for, but that's the best way.
May I?
She hit the nail on the head. Last year I was in my office, ready to get out, ready to come home, and well, the agent came in and said, "You got a lady who wants to see you." Stop. Come on in. Sit down. And I made a point here, and I was looking. How many people really think about and know the consequences or the impact of the transportation of disadvantaged rural transit in the state of Florida? I didn't know pea turkey about it. That lady sat there with tears in her eyes, explained to me how she couldn't figure how she was going to get out of the eastern side of Taylor County over to Lake City, over to Live Oak. That didn't seem like to be a big deal until you can't go, and that's your only opportunity to get to go, to follow up, to get an advantage, to be able to see somebody, to have an appointment with a medical doctor, some other type of service, whatever it was. I served on the Transportation Committee. Didn't have but one big thing to offer last year. But when the secretary came in, I said, "I don't know what you're going to do about the disadvantaged transportation in the rural system, but I want to see where it's going to be in the budget, and I mean tomorrow. Come by, because sometimes that little thought engenders all of us to do the thing better than what we're there to do." And I had no more idea than a man in the moon about where I was going, what I was going to do. But I knew those tears, and I knew that person was for real. Come see us.
Well, and let me add one more thing to that. We probably get more referrals for questions and assistance from legislators than any other agency. I mean, they pick up the phone and they call because they know that you are, or your loved ones are the most vulnerable people in the state. They don't take it lightly. Believe me, we've got 2 full-time people that do nothing but constituent issues. We take it seriously.
May I add to that? I would like to just reiterate that point because I'm sure Deborah and I both spend a lot of time downtown. These folks are very gracious. They meet with us. We talk to them. and we deliver the message, and I think we do a good job, of telling what the needs are. But, we can give the talking points, and we can say every time you cut $32,000 out of the Medicaid program, someone loses a job, because that's the rule of thumb, that's the impact. But if they can hear from Key Training Center and families, hey, they're having to cut 18 positions because the funding's been reduced, and what that means to you, it gives it a face and they understand, and it makes it so much easier for them to fight for you. So we love what we do, we love being down there, and we love representing you, but to put the face and the individual impact to that makes it much easier for everyone to understand, and then they have to sort out those priorities. So don't ever assume that, oh, well, they're going to do what they're going to do and my voice doesn't matter. It does matter. And I would encourage every one of you to share your story, your information with them so they can make the best decisions they can on your behalf. Thank you.
We had another question that's along this line for both legislators. What do you suggest parents ask for when registering to attend your annual delegation hearing this coming December 12th?
May I hear that again? I didn't hear all.
What do you suggest parents ask for when they attend the annual delegation hearing that's coming up on December 12th?
December 12th delegation. The first part.
Is there a delegation?
Yes, there is a legislative delegation meeting that's going to be here on December 12th. This parent wants to know, how do you suggest, what do they ask for when they come before you?
Actually, just present what your idea is in terms of what we should consider is going on. If it is a specific item that you're trying to do that's going to be changing a statute, then it has to be specifically designated to us in writing where we can consider it and know then whether or not it's something that is applicable to the agency that is supervising or taking that responsibility, or as something that's in general law. So if it's something that's just an idea, still come to see us, stand up there and tell us, as well as the county and the people in the delegation that are listening, what the concerns are, because you never know what that generates another thought and support of what somebody else may have. And again, if it's specific and it's something in statute pertaining to whatever, put it in writing and make sure, and before I go to that meeting, you ought to contact my office and make sure and see that we have reviewed it, that we're up to speed and can present an intelligent alternative or intelligent answer to your problem.
Representative Smith?
And to continue on with what he was addressing, one of the things, when you come before us, there are many issues that you're going to deal with, and we can't always deal with all of them. One of the things that you can come forward and say, this is my priority. I'm a family member or a caretaker, or this is my priority that I see needs to be done. Coming up with suggestions, of course, on areas that need to be specifically looked at. And then also, you understand, when you come up there, it gives that much more. We talk about coming in and see us and everything, and that's very good and that's very important. But now, by doing it at a delegation hearing, guess what? You've made an official request. It gives that a little more clout. But like it was said earlier, make sure that whatever you come with, that you have all your ducks in a row. We hear a lot of stories. We only have so much time to address this for the constituents. We want to make sure it's clear and concise. But come up and make your issues known at the delegation hearing. Just please have your priorities, have suggestions, and then also make sure you understand that that's an official request that you're doing right there, and it's very important, it's very powerful to do that.
Thank you. This question is for Margaret Hooper. Should the I-budget have more time to be evaluated before other redesign options are considered, and why?
Now, why do we need more time for that?
Should there be more time?
Oh, yeah, that's our position. The I-budget should be given, first it should be allowed to roll out fully. which I think will be completely rolled out. The goal is, I think, around July. And then I think you need to get some data because it's a new process. There has to be some adjustments. And I recommended to council members that at least a year's worth of data would be good to see, is this really working for families? Or is it helping the agency contain their budget? Is it really capturing, it's based on a formula that's supposed to capture different situations, and not everyone's going to neatly fit into that. Are there options for people that don't quite fit in to be able to adjust their cost plan to meet their needs? So that's why we think it's based on managed care principles, and it would be run by the nonprofit state agency, and so we think it deserves a fair shot.
This question is for Deborah Linton. How can state agencies reduce and reorganize to ensure funding is being spent on constituents?
Well, we currently deal with several state agencies to offer these services. We're kind of an agency in conflict. The Agency for Healthcare Administration actually is our funding entity. That's where Medicaid dollars flow. They also contract with the monitoring group, Delmarva Foundation, that monitors our facilities. However, the Agency for Persons with Disabilities writes the monitoring standards for those people who come out and monitor, and they set the program policy. We also have interventions with Department of Children and Families. It can be a chaotic system. I'm not sure if we need all three of these entities involved in our lives. It seems to me there is obviously some duplication. This governor has certainly looked at streamlining government functions. It can be disheartening to an agency who's trying to do their best, and funds are very tight, to have one entity tell you the regulations are this, maybe APD, and then you go to ACA, or ACA will tell you this, and APD says, well, ACA made that decision, or ACA tells you APD. That's not a fun system, and that's not good government when we do that and duplicate these regulations and all this oversight. So that's one way. I think ACA and APD need to figure out who's in charge, who writes the manuals, who enforces the manuals, and us have a clear line of authority and a fair line of authority.
This one's for Barbara Palmer. When a community such as Citrus County has been successful in utilizing community support to assist in meeting the needs of persons with developmental disabilities, when they become maxed out or tapped, what are their options when funding of services continues to be cut?
Read it again, please.
When a community such as Citrus County has been successful in utilizing community support to assist in meeting the needs of persons with developmental disabilities, becomes maxed out or tapped, what are their options when funding of services continue to be cut?
Well, I'm hoping that communities are not going to max out. I think there are a lot of community supports out there that we don't know about yet, and that's why we've got people in our office that are dedicated to researching right now for this resource directory, so that we know what services are out there. But I don't support this organization being cut. And we've already put in our request for budget, and we're requesting some dollars for technology, and we're requesting to maintain the level of funding that we have. Last year we took a 7% cut administratively, which that didn't put not even 1 penny into the waiver, and we are lean, I'm telling you, as far as administration is concerned. So go talk to your legislators, guys.
Okay, here's another one for legislators. Okay, would you and your aides consider spending time at a group home, at a day program, or at a family home to fully grasp the circle of supports, services, and needs experienced by individuals and families? Experiencing both the successes possible and barriers that exist, how would you share this information with others?
that has so many different answers in it, and I'm not real sure I'm going to be on specific. I think we need to go back to see what the goal is, what we're trying to achieve here, okay? And if you do that, then with different type of programs, the assessment that you're having on them, let's then deal with the director and deal with the people that are in the field working and see what part is good and what part is not and what part is that we can accomplish. I think, again, something that was very important, it was just said by Ms. Palmer, and that's the fact that we all suffered through a 7% reduction last year. And when you try to do that, you try to balance in what programs are most needed, and then evaluating the second most needed and the third most needed, and to be able to work our program areas out in servicing when we're trying to put our money there. So I think that would be the answer we're looking here again.
Thank you. You know, I have no problem whatsoever going to facilities and seeing what's being done. But the truth is one of the things I found out is people like to give you tours, bring you through, and show you how things are going on. And one of the things I always tell them is, you know what? Let's just cut to the quick, sit down, and tell me what it is that your concerns. Because you can show me as much as you want. I've been to the Pepin Academy. I see what they do as far as education and dealing with people with developmental disability. And then afterwards, when we sat down, instead of having 2 hours to talk about the issues, but because of the tour, we only had a half an hour. And I'd like to use my time as productively as possible. You're the subject matter expert. You know what needs to be done. To give me a first-hand knowledge, well, truthfully, I already have a pretty decent first-hand knowledge from family, friends, and others. You know, I understand a lot of what's going on. Everything from CREST to KEY to people out in the community. Okay, I do. What I need more is time spent specifically discussing answers on how to fix the system that we currently have. A tour is interesting, and once again, I'll gladly go if that's what you want, but I'd rather give you that time to actually sit and discuss the issues and get to the meat of the issue instead of walking through someplace and seeing how you provide those services.
Okay, this one is for, they don't know who it's for, and it's a little lengthy, but I think it warrants me reading this. So we have a grandson who will be 9 years old in 2 months. His mother is a teacher in another county, so we have to do a lot of the legwork for her because she has no time during the day to make calls. Our grandson goes to 5 doctors and therapists all out of county. Her insurance covers only a portion of the expense for visits and meds. We are told over and over that she can get help, but no one can tell us who to contact. Social Security laughed and says she makes too much money. Therapists say some of their families make much more and qualify. She only needs supplemental help over her insurance coverage, but nobody will tell us who to contact. Who up there wants to take this question? Where do they go?
Is this for a 9-year-old?
Yes.
Can I please first?
Go ahead. No, please.
Well, this goes back to that whole issue. That person should have either come into us or went to see Congressman Nugent because it could be a particular federal issue. And at that point, that's where we get hold of the agencies and the resources out there. That's where we're your tool. And then at that point, we can't tell you specifically what's going to be done, but we can connect you with the right people to start that process. And I'm sorry for interrupting, but...
Anybody else want to add to that one?
I was just going to say, if they're Medicaid eligible, they would go to ACA because they would be on the state plan.
We are close to our lunchtime, our noontime break. Is there any other comments that any of our speakers would like to make? Maybe areas that they felt they needed a little bit more explanation on? Mr. Representative Smith?
You know, one of the things actually is a question, and this just shows you that, you know, as legislators, we don't know it all. When a child is diagnosed as having a disability, is there a life plan for that child? Do we actually look forward enough in our vision to say, you know, as a child, you're going to have these special needs. As a teenager, you're going to have these special needs. When you get aged out long term, do we sit down with the parents, and this is just a broad question for those on the panel here to think about, and of course the members out here, do we really have a strategic plan to help facilitate the life of that young individual? And if we don't, maybe that's one of the priorities that we should set forth.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that because I've only been back in this agency in state government for a short period of time, but you have brought up something I think that is very serious and very important because we have so many different agencies involved. It makes it very difficult to do that. And I'll tell you something that just is glaring to me right now, which I don't know why we haven't looked at this, probably because we have 140 spreadsheets and we don't have any way to really analyze it, but that's going to get better. But, you know, someone that doesn't have developmental disability, when they become a teenager, we have all kinds of behavior problems with them. You know, I've got a kid, you know. I mean, I understand that. So what the pattern that I have seen when I'm signing these crises is that when a person with developmental disabilities becomes a teenager and hormones start raging, just like everybody else, the IB stuff goes up. I mean, tremendously. So what have we done to plan for any of that? And that's exactly to your point. Because I really do believe I have them now tracking, because I'll put a 3-month review on something like that, or a 6-month review on this person to see if we're able to help them through some of their issues. So we need to be putting some of those kinds of plans together. Now, how to do that, I don't know. We're going to have to think that through.
I agree, and the other area that I think that we have something that we can fall back on is the strength of our association and organizations. More than any other thing, how can anyone else tell you how to do something except the person that's had the experience in it? I believe this organization in Citrus County epitomizes over the years of the ability, and that's why it grows, because people understand you have it. That's why they move here, to be able to get the service, to be able to have someone to help them within the family needs. And I think that's the most significant part of it that I could recommend in anything, is keep our strength and knowledge within our association and those parents and the people that have a knowledge and understanding.
I wasn't going to get into it, but the regulatory question has come up 3 or 4 times. So there are a couple of concepts I'd like to present that we've voted in the past. A lot of these standards and requirements that become part of handbook and rule are really best practices. And there's a lot of pride in the industry, and I have no doubt that most folks are out there trying to do the best they can, you know, provide quality services and love what they do. But some of the requirements that were intended, this is the way we want to do it, this is the best way to do it, have actually become codified as a rule, and you have to do it. So we would like to see more of an approach of this is best practice, this is what we prefer, but this is the minimum, or the acceptable, maybe is a better word than minimal. Because the way the system works, if you're not doing everything, your provider agency is subject to a payback of funding. And this can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars because it can go back in time. So that's one concept we would like to see. Another one is there's a concept called partial compliance versus 100%. You come to a day program or you live in a residential facility, you receive the services, you had no problem with the service, there's no question that the service was provided and was probably provided well. But if all of the documentation, such as a date on a certain line, or I've even heard wild cases like, okay, the plan had to be correctly completed, but because it had a typo, it wasn't correct. So it was a payback situation. And those things sound extreme, and they are, but they sort of get, you know, taken sometimes to a level that was never intended. So we would like to see, let's look at what is acceptable, what you have to have, what ensures the health, safety, and welfare, and that folks are getting good services. Then what's desirable, what's best, what could be added on, or truly what is required as far as compliance. Maybe a 93 works as well as 100 when it comes to the documentation of the paperwork. Okay.
Thank you, and join me in thanking Ms.
Can I just say
Oh,
something?
sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to all of the family members, the individuals and family members out there, all of these people all of the people around us work for us. They really do work for us. They're here because of developmental disabilities. And so we owe it to them to let them know what we need, when we need it, how we need it, what we can do, but we need to be responsible in doing that, and we need to understand everything that they've been talking about, all of the regulations, the legislation, all of the other things involved. But as family members, we do have power, but we have to come together to do anything about it. So we have a meeting next Monday at 10 a.m. at the APD office, okay? That's a Family Care Council meeting. Okay, thank you.
And I just have one suggestion for families, and we're talking about a life plan, but this doesn't satisfy all those requirements. But the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council puts together a guide. It's called Planning Ahead, and several of us have worked on it for many, many times, and it's very comprehensive, and it's going to tell a family all the state agencies you're going to be involved with, all the requirements when you get an SSI check, several things, and I would encourage y'all to go to their website and look for that Planning Ahead guide, because it is very comprehensive, and it kind of helps you start thinking ahead, you know, what about planning for if I'm not here and those sorts of things.
Thank you, Deborah. I thought of that too when the representative expressed a concern about that with our Planning Ahead guide. And we have other publications also that that our council members, 60% of whom, just to remind you all, are people with a developmental disability or are family members of someone with a developmental disability. And they have gotten together on different committees to put together publications to help make the lives easier for people with developmental disabilities and their families. So in addition to the Planning Ahead guide, we also have early intervention guide, and we have human sexuality guides, and we're putting together a housing guide at this time.
Last chance. Okay. Now, I would like to thank them. This has been just phenomenal, and to have all of you guys on our stage here, we really appreciate it. Thank you very much. We hope you're all planning to stay for lunch. It's served in the back, and it's kind of like first come, first serve, but the line can go front and back. And our beverages are over here. We'll break from noon to 1, and we'll hope you're planning on coming back with us at 1 o'clock, where we'll have another panel set up to talk about more locally how we are addressing some of these issues. Thank you very much. About through with lunch and got everything all settled, we will start with our afternoon session. For those of you who are new, and some of our guests, we'll explain once again how the process works, and I think it worked well, and you all saw how the cards worked the last time. We'll begin by letting them introduce themselves and explain either their agency or their job or however that they do that has given them that insight and that expertise that warrants their presence here, and that they can help. And as we try to fit this puzzle together of looking at the future of Florida and how we are going to provide for our developmentally disabled children and adults. So after we go through all of them, and then we will have questions. Now remember your cards, and if you need any more cards, if you don't have them at the table, you just raise your hand and somebody will get them for you. You write your questions out. Okay, raise your hand with that, and they will be brought up to me, and that's how we will give our questions to our speakers. Please, I ask you, write very legible. There were some the last time that I couldn't quite make out, and please put down who you want the question to go to, because that's real helpful. If you want it to go to more than one person, then you can write down that too, but at least give me some direction where you want me to start out so I can get it started in the right to the right person. So we will welcome our guests. We want to thank them collectively for being here today. It means so much, and as you can see, this input and this concern and this passion that they have is what's going to make a difference and what's going to help us move forward. So we're going to start with our introductions with Lon Fry. Oh, pass the mic.
Pass it? Okay. Well, good afternoon. My name is Lon. I'm here from Citrus County Transit. And I see a lot of familiar faces. There's people here that we give direct service to, but I would like to talk to you a little bit about who we are and what we do. Citrus County Transit has been in existence since 1978. That's quite a while. And basically, we try to enable transportation in a rural county, which sometimes is very hard to do. A lot of times when you get into the larger counties, the population density gives you the ability to do more things efficiently. And obviously we moved here because we like elbow room, we like space, we like the quality of life. And that's one thing, but I can tell you on the far side, when you have such a distance between and we're spread out, that does become a challenge. I can tell you we deal with the med waiver, which I'm sure everyone here is familiar with. Presently, we have 14 of our key clients that we bring on a regular basis, as well as many, many others that we take to their employment on our door-to-door service, on the door-to-door bus. And the med waiver, a lot of times, we're all concerned about how volatile that program may be at the present time. We had as many as like 28 that we transported at one time, and you can see every year the med waiver, it drops, and I know that drastically affects the service and of the people that do come to the Key Center, and that's something we all deal with. A lot of times when we have people that come to the Key Center and they lose their med waiver, we do put them on our general door-to-door service. We try very hard to do that. Unfortunately, we don't have the capability to give them as long a day, as many days, and really to give the level of service they become accustomed to and really they deserve. But we all deal with just the everyday issues of how do we balance service, how do we do a good job with what we have. To give you an idea, Citrus County Transit, we have about 15 paratransit or door-to-door routes by advance reservation that people come and we pick you up, we take you to our destination, and we really work between the hours of about 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. And as I say, when we spread this out all over the county, it sounds like a lot, but I know there's a lot of transportation needs that aren't being met. And a lot of times, I know I've worked very closely with some people in the room, and whenever you have an individual transportation circumstance, if you give us a call, all we can guarantee is we'll try real hard to fill that void. A lot of times, we can't be everything to everybody, but we are try to be very much in tune with the needs, particularly of the Key Center, and really the population of people that are challenged in general. I will say of all the vehicles we have, all of them are wheelchair accessible. We are the Medicaid transportation provider for Citrus County. And what's that mean? That means if you're Medicaid eligible, we take you to your closest appointment. That may be across the street, it may be Inverness to Crystal River. Generally, the circle we encompass is between Gainesville and Tampa, that we take people for their medical appointments, as well as stretchers and other things. So we're pretty well diversified in the type of service that we do provide to the county. One of the things I don't know if you're familiar with is we have, for the last 3 years, we've had a fixed route pilot program that has taken people from inner city Beverly Hills down as far as the College of Central Florida and into Inverness. It's run 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. And I'm very pleased to share a concept with you today. As a matter of fact, we rolled out a new program today. I underestimated the amount of people that would be here. I do have some brochures that I want to leave, but I would really like to get this message out a little bit. And I have a map that you may not be able to see, but I hope you understand the concept. As I said, the program that we ran presently is 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. It does have wheelchair accessible, and it is without reservation at a pre-described bus stops. And it's called a deviated fixed route, and the deviation means if we can accommodate your need either for pickup or drop-off within our route, we'll make every attempt to do so. But if you'll bear with me, I just want to bring my map out. I never go anywhere without my map. I'm not very good, so I bring props. And I don't have a puppet, so this is the best I can do. I know it's very hard to see right now, but I'd like to say that we've put together something. It's our Inverness fixed route. Could you help me a second? Thank you, Mr. McBride. Okay, just in general, we've put together a route that'll go every morning 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. between Inverness to Floral City, back to Inverness, to Hernando, back to Inverness, with a transfer point on Walmart on Route 44. We've put together a route that'll leave our office in Lecanto, It'll go into Beverly Hills to numerous stops, up into Citrus Springs, back into Beverly Hills. And one of the things with transportation, regionally, having a new superstore in Beverly Hills will greatly change a lot of people's travel patterns, and it'll link with the Inverness route for a transfer point, and then back into the college. We've put together a Crystal River route that'll go from our office in Lecanto to the Walmart store to Metacrest, work its way up to the mall, down 19 as far as Atlas Drive by the car dealers, back into Crystal River, and then back into Lecanto to the college. And the last one is our Homosassa route. It'll leave every morning, go to the college, to Grover Cleveland across, up to Atlas Center, to Old Homosassa, back to 19, down into Chazowitska, serving Sugar Mill, and everything involved there. I know that's just a brief description of what we're working on. And as I say, one of the premises we have is if you have a chance to get a job, to go to college, to go to technical school, or just to get out to your medical appointments and you live in this area, we're trying very hard to make that accessible. And as I said, the buses are wheelchair accessible, and we deal with a lot of special needs people. One of the things with this I just wanted to say is if people said, can I get from here to here? And absolutely the answer is yes, you can. But the whole concept was for service within the corridor. How many people from Floral City, they really just need to get to Inverness. And a lot of people work in their, to duplicate the door-to-door service. And one of the people say, why do you do something like this? Well, the hours of operation, it's a longer day, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. There's no reservation. And the actual cost for a fixed route trip, the actual cost is less than $4 a passenger. So the passenger pays a nominal fee, and we can serve more people with the same amount of equipment. It's more efficiently used. We will always have the door-to-door service in Citrus County. I couldn't imagine ever not having that. But for people that we can offer an economical alternative to this, we've tried very hard to put this together. And I'll just give you an idea. The cost in the state of Florida of a door-to-door paratransit trip is in excess of $22. And the more people you can get onto the $4 trips as opposed to the $22 trips, I think the more service you can get in general. So I just want to plug it a little bit. Today was the first day of this operation. It went very smoothly, but for a project like this to be successful, we need to get the word out. And I know a lot of people in this room, this isn't the only organization you're active with. There's many organizations, and if we have a chance, come in and talk to you or your organization and share our information, we'd really appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Robert. Our next speaker will be Cabot McBride.
Thank you, Neil. It's good to be back at the Key Training Center. I'm in somewhat of a unique position here in that I worked for many years at the Key, currently work for APD, but my role here this afternoon is to represent the City of Inverness, where I am currently the president of the Inverness City Council. I want to let you all know that for the 26 years I have been a resident of Inverness, the Key Training Center has worked very closely with the city administration to develop many opportunities for folks who are developmentally delayed, folks who are associated with the Key Training Center. We have 4 group homes, we have 4 apartment complexes, we have other places in the city of Inverness where people are private residents. The great advantage of living in a municipality when you are a person who has a developmental delay and in all likelihood does not have a driver's license is that you can be minutes away from anything that you need. Now, we very much appreciate the services that we get from Lawn Fry and Citrus County Transportation, but if you're living in the city of Inverness, you are literally 5 minutes away from a hospital, from a grocery store, from a pharmacy, from parks. You can get anywhere you want to go by foot in a matter of minutes. The thing that we sometimes forget in this business is that we want people to be integrated into the community. And that has its good points and sometimes has its bad points, okay? I am not coming to you from a standpoint of ideological purity when it comes to these issues, but I will tell you this. The people that live in the city of Inverness who are associated with the Key Center are very much welcomed there. They are just a part of the fabric of our community. For years and years, I see our folks walking around town, going from point A to point B. It's most common. They are part of us. They're part of the city. They should not be ostracized, nor should we put people up on pedestals. The people of the Key Training Center who are associated with it are people who have come to be known and loved by us, and we embrace them. We embrace the opportunity to have our facilities available within the city. We welcome the fact that we have an adult day training program in the city of Inverness, that we have a Key store there, that we have the group homes, that we have the apartments there. Because people should not be forced to live outside in narrowly defined areas because they have a disability. We need to welcome people. They need to be a part of our cities. I do hope that we will continue to have that relationship with the Key Training Center and with other persons who have disabilities also. The city of Inverness is a safe and secure place to live. We have shops, we have downtown areas with interesting stores, we have restaurants, we have activities going on there all the time. Christmas parade this Saturday, you got to be there now, okay? You got to be there. We have things that are going on for free for people. Somebody can walk into Whispering Pines Park, doesn't cost them 10 cents, and they can use the facilities of that park. It's a great place to live, and it's a great place to be able to say, this is my city, this is where I live, this is where I belong. So on behalf of the city of Inverness, I just want to express my appreciation for the opportunity to have been here and to let you all know that the Key Training Center and the city of Inverness are walking hand in hand to provide services and a healthy living environment for people with developmental disabilities. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Our next speaker will be Stephanie Hopper.
Hello, thank you for having all of us. This is a wonderful forum. I am the mother of 2 adult sons in their 30s with developmental disabilities and the guardian of a man of 52. And that's my primary role. Why doesn't everybody in this room raise your hand if you're the parent or guardian of a person with developmental disabilities? Okay, great. Now, don't be too obvious about it, but check out some of the people around you. A lot of gray hair in this room. I don't mean this to be that, that our kids give us gray hair, although that may be the case. What I mean to say is there are hundreds, if not thousands of hours of experience raising people and helping people with developmental disabilities in this room. And I would venture to say that no matter how serious or unique the problem that you personally are facing or have faced, that there's somebody in this room who's already gone through it, has already dealt with it. So that's the first thing I want you to know. The second thing is, if you were here this morning and you listened to the talk, we are the ones that everybody looks to for help. But if you're like me, you're sitting there thinking, well, I know we need help from the legislature. I know we need help from the different agencies. But how do we get that help? How do we organize? And that's the point of everything I think they were saying this morning, that if we go and we ask in an organized way for something, that we will get that help. Families are always the most valuable resource for any person with disabilities, no matter how great or small those challenges are. The biggest problem that I see as a parent resource is that most parents do not realize how important their contributions might be. And we really don't see what powerful agents we can be for change if we only act together. I think that parent support groups arise for just that reason. And I think they're different. We don't offer specific services very much. We offer support. A lot of times that is purely social. And it's comforting, I think, to be surrounded by people who know you for yourself, not just as somebody's mother. And you all know what I'm talking about. I can't tell you the number of years I've gone through life as Matthew and Michael's mother. You know, nobody knew who I was. Support groups find a way to identify our common needs and work together to achieve them. I have been really lucky in my job and in what I have done here in Citrus County to work with families that included students and adults of all ages. And one thing really struck me in all these years. I have never met one family who was ever prepared to navigate the system. Many times when a special needs child is born, parents may not even realize there is a system. And we all start out feeling isolated. Even if you're lucky enough to have a sister who is raising 2 children with developmental disabilities, as one person in here is, you still believe that no one can possibly know what you're feeling. And what's worse, parents will go years thinking they are the only ones who face a particular challenge. So when you leave today, I want you to have one thought: you're not alone. Now, all of this stuff begs the question, why is this so difficult for us? Why is it so hard to realize that there is help out there, that we just have to ask somebody? Why do we keep having to reinvent the wheel? Some parents like me, or most of the people I know in here, have raised their kids, have gotten their kids through, I can't tell you how many crises. And we've had the opportunity through the years to join in or even start different groups that have a goal of supporting other families. In your packet, in your bag from the Key Center, there are several things that are useful. There is a list of different agencies and organizations that might offer help. I constantly update that. But it's really useful if you think there is nobody to help. Most of these, if you're asking for real legitimate help, it doesn't do any good to have somebody else ask for you. They have to hear from you personally. So this is a starting point for that. There also is a green piece of paper in there, and that's really useful. It's got acronyms on it. I don't know if you noticed up here this morning, but you're going to hear it if you're raising a child, you're going to hear it a lot. You'll hear people throwing out APD and CIL and FFRA and FARF and all of those things. It's good to know what they're talking about. Those things don't change too much. And it's really hard for people who are talking about services to avoid using them, because otherwise we'd never be quiet. And then there is also a list of activities and social events that are coming up. What you should do, though, and what if you represent a group of any kind, is know that when a family comes to you, the very least you can do is at least give them somebody else to call so that the chain isn't broken. Some groups offer specific help and expertise. There is CARD, which primarily, Center for Autism and Related Disorders, which primarily works with people who have some form of autism or communication disorder. There is NAMI, which I don't see anybody here today from it, but I go to their meetings at National Alliance on Mental Illness. Somebody this morning touched on the fact that a lot of our kids are dually diagnosed. Not only do they have a developmental disability, but they have some form of mental illness. Whether it's controlled by medication or not, it's good to know that there is help out there. Support groups, as I said, though, are different because support groups like to look at the whole family, and they recognize that the DD individual is very complex. They cannot be defined by one label. You can't just say my son or my daughter has this, that, or the other thing. They have a lot of things going on. But families are a single, indivisible unit. So if you help any one member of the family, whether it's the child or whether it's the father or the mother or the sibling, you're helping everyone. Conversely, as somebody once said, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. If there's a problem going on in a family with anybody, it has to be addressed because the whole family is going to be affected by it. They're not acting individually. They're not reacting individually. So in that packet where there's a list of upcoming speakers and meetings, what I would like to encourage you all to do is to please try to attend some of these things. Try to attend a speaker, even if you don't need that help right that minute. Try to come to some of the support groups. Because what will happen is that you'll come once, you won't know anybody. You come twice, you'll start to recognize a few faces. If you come 3 times, then you're going to have friends, and then you're going to come to all of them, and the visits that you get and the social opportunities grow and grow. In fact, on the list of activities and speakers, there are a few that are called purely social. And that's what they are. They're opportunities to go either for lunch or dinner at Angelotti's. They are open to anyone who has a child with a disability. I don't care if the child is 3 or 93. You're welcome to come. They're all at Angelotti's, which is part of the building that the Inverness Key Training Center workshop is. And they donate part of their proceeds to the Key Center, I believe. So we're killing a lot of birds with one stone here. The lunches usually are they usually are just women, but there are a lot of parents who come to the lunches and gives us a chance to just socialize with each other. The dinners, and I'm going to try to increase them, we have been bringing our children, and it's turned out to be really fun because all of our adult children sit together and socialize and have a good time, and they're off on their own, and that's just wonderful to see. And then we get a chance to visit. So those have started to become very popular, so you're all welcome to those. Our KCFC meetings, the Key Center Family Connection, are open to anyone who has a child in the Key Center or who might at some time want to have a child in the Key Center. So you're welcome, even though your child is only 3. Our next meeting is February 13th, 2013. Please come. There will be lunch, and we want to get to know you. You'll notice there are presentations by various speakers that are open to the public. I try to make those speakers relevant to people who have our interests. We've already had some with on guardianship, and we got one scheduled on Social Security. So there are a lot of things that are really of interest. We had a huge group here for the guardianship one and for the behavior one. And sometimes those develop into follow-along sort of subgroups that we have a chance to meet together. I think that's about all I had to cover. I just want to encourage you to look at everybody here as part of your family, because we are. I think that the Key Center is a second family to me because it is a family to my children. So you try to support your family. You try to support each other in that family, and that's what all of these support groups and the Key Center Family Connection try to do. So I hope I'll see a lot more of you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Our next speaker will be Amy Meek.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Amy Meek, and I'm the CEO of the United Way of Citrus County. Our organization is one of the leading fundraisers in this community, and we fundraise to distribute funds back into the community to various agencies and organizations. Last year, of the 19 agencies that we agreed to fund, Key Training Center received the largest portion of that funding. So we're have a very close relationship with the Key Training Center and what they do. Our key focus is self-sustainability within the community, and we feel that what the Key Training Center does so beautifully is really emphasize self-sustainability through their education and through the outreach that they perform here in this facility. The program that we fund directly is the Adult Day Training Program, which really educates folks and provides income earning opportunities for those individuals, which obviously is very important to their success and to their individual lives. But I would say that the greatest thing that this organization does so well, above and beyond the other organizations that we fund, is the manner in which they treat every person with such dignity and respect. You would be surprised how many organizations in the community do not do that for other people. And also this organization puts a high emphasis on faith and encourages every client to understand there is only one God, and that God is not the provider, that God is God. So I really believe in what the work that they are doing and the manner in which they are doing it. So I'm happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Our next speaker will be Melissa Walker.
Well, I'd like to thank the committee that put this morning together and this afternoon inviting the Key Training Center to be part of this forum. For those of you that might be new to the area or have been here for a long time, let me just kind of give you an overview of the Key Training Center. We are a nonprofit organization, and we've been providing services to adults with developmental disabilities for over 45 years in Citrus County. We currently provide over 300 individuals year-round services in day training, educational, recreational, transportation, and residential services. On our residential side, we have about 19 group homes that range from 3 bedrooms to 11 beds, or we also have 4 apartment complexes located in the city of Inverness that accommodates 25 individuals. I'd encourage for you to learn a little bit more about the Key and the resources we have here in Citrus County. We have a website that we try to keep updated. It's www.keytrainingcenter.org, and on that I'd like to share with you our vision and our mission. The Key Center's vision is all people with developmental disabilities should be afforded all human rights and enjoy legitimate opportunities to share equally in every aspect of community life and citizenship without discrimination. Our mission is to assist persons with developmental disabilities achieve their God-given potential through an array of individualized services that promote growth, choice, and independence with kindness, love, dignity, and respect. Funds that support the Key Training Center come from state and local government, our retail resale enterprises, grants, together with public community donations. The Key Center has about a $9 million operating budget. 68% of that comes from government contracts. That would be the Agency with Persons with Disabilities that was here this morning. So that equates to about $6.1 million that comes from that resource. 14% comes from our earned income, which would be our thrift stores and our investments. 18% comes from public supports and grants, such as United Way and those that have been able to contribute in the community. And that's nearly $3 million that we're challenged to self-raise each year. How are the funds spent? 71% are spent on our program services, 23% on general administration services, 5% on our thrift store operations, and about 1% on our fundraising. As you know, and this morning I think they kind of gave a pretty good overview, providers such as ourselves, which we had Marion County here this morning, the executive director there, I don't see him, he must have left, but in each community there is a place such as the Key Training Center. And over the years, we keep on facing difficult economic times. Most of our counterparts, providers such as ourselves, continue to cut services, and we try to not do that within the Key. We currently provide over 70 scholarships to individuals through the relationship that we have with the Citrus County school system, that when individuals do graduate from the public school system, that they'll be able to come to the Key on a scholarship. This is the most amount of people that we have had receiving free services from the Key. We've been able to do many of the things that we do today and currently is due to our thrift store operations and the donations given to by the Key. We've been blessed with a financial reserve, but unfortunately being hit as hard as we have in the last couple of years, that has become to a critical low situation. So we've had to cut back, we've had to reorganize and become better with the amount of income that we've got coming in. The Key Center considers each one on this committee or on this panel today to be vital partners in meeting the needs of developmentally disabled. And I don't want this all to be about the Key today, because I know we have many in the audience that hopefully are going to ask some good questions to help meet the needs of your child. I think it's very important this morning, that was the first opportunity I've had to meet the new director of Agency for Persons with Disabilities, and I was very impressed. I think if anything came across from that, being with the Key for 10 years, I've seen APD, well, I guess they were, yeah, it was about the time I came here, 10 years. We've gone deficit to surplus, deficit to surplus. And at this point, they do not have any respect with the legislature. And if they are really at a balanced budget, being 50% implemented of the I-budget is amazing to me. And if they're able to present that to the legislature, I really think we need to support in giving that I-budget a year evaluation before other redesigns come up. I mean, there's that, what was it, $17 million that's still out there, and if the governor is going to give that support, then I think us as a group need to support APD in trying to give that a try. But to me, I thought she was very fair in her responses to looking at the whole picture, looking to individuals that want to attend adult day training center type of environment to individuals that want to work in the public, in the community. So I'll be looking forward to any questions that come across, and with that, I'm done.
Thank you, Melissa. And our next speaker will be Nancy Haynes.
Good afternoon. Looking around the room, and I realize that there are at least 5 families here that I have known since their children were 3 or under the age of 3. We, not everyone colors their hair, but there's a lot of gray under here, trust me. But my name is Nancy Haynes, and I am the Director of Exceptional Student Education for Citrus County Schools, and very proud to say that I and working for the best school district in the state of Florida. And working in a district where we really do form partnerships to meet the needs of our children. Citrus County Schools provide services to children from birth to the age of 22 for those students who need it and meet eligibility for programs. We work very closely with the Department of Health to provide the services to birth to 3-year-olds. And then we have primary responsibility for the education with the help of the parents and the families for the students age 3 to age 22, but we work very closely with the Key and with other agencies to make sure that our students transition into the most productive adults that they possibly can become. Most of you probably are aware of the fact that we have in Citrus County 2 center schools. One is an alternative setting. One is our center school. Rich Hilgert is here from Crest School as the principal, and we partner quite a bit on problem solving and working through issues that we have and making sure we're meeting the needs of our students. We have 3 high schools, 4 middle schools, and 11 elementary schools. We serve a little over 16,000 students, and we have a fairly large population of students with special needs that need us to develop individual education plans, work with our school psychologists, with our nursing staff, collaborate with our social workers, with our SROs, and as a team, meet the needs of our students. I too look forward to trying to answer any of the questions that you may have for me. Thank you.
At this point, we'll begin with our questions. Just remember to write them out on your card and hold them up and bring them up here. And we will continue to ask questions as long as I'm getting questions here. So our first question is going to go to Nancy Haynes. Nancy, since there's a huge waiting list to receive most services, what are the schools doing to educate families about how to apply for state services?
Well, I think you heard quite a bit from Stephanie Hopper. She's been the leader in our district of making sure that we're on top of knowing what services are available. She works with our exceptional student education specialists. We have one of those at every single school. And she makes sure that at the beginning of the school year, or even before the school year begins, that she's got a list of those students that the specialists know when they're going to be having meetings, and asks that they invite her and let the parents know that she'll be there at the table to talk about different agencies, different services, and what's available. Stephanie, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and it is vital that parents learn as soon as possible. A lot of times, though, parents who just learned that their child has special needs are not willing to leap right into getting, thinking about the future. I like to present it that, it's an insurance policy. You may not need any of the things that you apply for, but if you're eligible for them, it's good to apply.
Can I add to that? Can I ask just this morning? Could you address, Representative Smith mentioned this morning about a life plan. And, so that would be from the beginning to in the, I guess, the high school years to the graduation, and then whatever that, the future of the individual once they age out. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I'd be happy to. And I would like to add to something that Stephanie said. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've heard, but nobody ever told me that. No one ever told me that. And I think that what I have learned is you're only able to hear just so much each time you meet with folks. Mary Ann Bryan is one of our parent liaisons. She's here in the audience. If you'd raise your hand, Mary Ann. Mary Ann has been instrumental in providing us with brochures, information, packets to give to families so that they walk away from a meeting with enough information to keep them busy for a couple of years. But it is difficult to know because you're in different stages throughout your life of readiness and what your needs are. The initial evaluation and eligibility, you have certain needs, and then as your child gets older and you start looking towards the future more and more, you do have to have a life plan. And one of the things that we have in the school district, we've got a group sitting over here at the table that are members of the Student Transition and Resource Team. This is not just the school district, this is all the agencies throughout the district that come together and meet and talk about what's changing, what's new, and in this little brochure that we give out all the time It's called START, to make plans before you leave high school. This is all about, and we encourage families to join this interagency council very early on when their children are still in elementary school, if they're ready to learn more about what's available as far as that life insurance policy that Stephanie talked about.
Thank you. This next question is for Lon Fry. During this morning session, several agencies are supporting a transportation disadvantage program using a voucher or smart cards in efforts to create transportation options for individuals with developmental disabilities. Are you aware of some of these options, and how could these initiatives impact Citrus County?
I'm sorry, could you, about a smart card?
Yes.
I'm not familiar with a smart card at all. I can tell you a little bit about transportation disadvantage. Citrus County receives $23,000 every month from an organization called Transportation Disadvantage to subsidize transportation for people with a challenge, whether it's economic, physical. This is to try to meet their transportation need. And I can tell you, as the Med Waiver program has regressed and more people have lost their Med Waiver, there are more people going into the transportation disadvantaged pool, if you have it. And one of the things that we're dealing with right now is it is not an endless amount of money that we have, and the demand for those subsidized rides has increased to the point where we really have to do something. And one of the things that we have done is, we do have a fare increase, that's taking place. I know possibly some of you are aware the transportation disadvantage will be $3 a ride each way. And I wish I had information on the smart card, but at the present time, I'm sorry that I don't.
Thank you. This one is for Melissa Walker. Could I pay for day program services for my son? He is not eligible for APD services.
Could you repeat that question?
Could I pay for day program services for my son? He is not eligible for APD services.
Well, currently, the Key Training Center provides services to individuals that qualify for the agency persons with disabilities. We go by that criteria. Stephanie and I have had lots of talks about individuals that we call are in the gray area. In other words, they have an IQ of 70, over 70, and just do not meet the criteria for the agency for persons with developmental disabilities. The Key Training Center, because as we talked this morning, you heard the managed care word several times, and we're just not really quite sure where the funding for services are going to go for individuals with developmental disabilities. As part of that, if it is to go to managed care, it would fall underneath the ACA. Agency for Healthcare Administration, and we are currently applied for an adult day care center, which would be underneath ACA. And what we're hoping, and so that's under the Department of Elderly Affairs, which was mentioned this morning. And that might open up an opportunity for individuals that are in that gray area might be able to receive services that way. So at this point, we're not in a position to provide services for someone that falls not under the APD criteria, but maybe if we're able to receive this license, we might be able to expand our services to meet those individuals' needs.
Thank you. This next question is for Stephanie Hopper. What is the best way for parents and guardians to advocate for their loved ones' needs on a local and state basis?
Parents need to join a group. It doesn't matter what group it is, they need to join a group. If we heard anything this morning, we heard that legislators want to hear from us, but they don't want to hear just a general complaint. They want to hear a specific request or a specific problem addressed, and if we can come up with not only a specific problem, but perhaps a solution to that problem that we just need help getting through the legislature, then that would be even better. And so I would say if you have a spare morning once a month, pick one of the groups that are available in Citrus County one that you think might help you meet people who are in the same situation you are, and work together and then contact other groups. There is a constant communication among all of the families here. We are a big family, but we have to learn how to work together. So that's the best way.
This next question is for Amy Meek. Amy, United Way is restructuring, and we hear about the 3 impact areas of education, health, and income. How do the needs of individuals with developmental disabilities and their families in Citrus County fall within these focus areas?
Well, I think I kind of talked about that in my introduction, but education, income, and health really are very well responded to with the program that we fund directly, which is the Adult Day Training Program. United Way doesn't just fund agencies at large for their general fund, but we earmark dollars for specific projects that agencies are working on. So all of the 19 agencies that we fund have specific guidelines and criteria that they must utilize that funding for. So the funding that we give to this organization is specific to the Adult Day Training Program. And that program, like I mentioned earlier, really does a great job of educating the participants, preparing them for specific jobs in the community, and giving them the skills that they need to facilitate those jobs. But not only that, but the Key Training Center has established relationships with a variety of employers within the county who are prepared to hire their clients for a specific set of jobs. So not only are they facilitating education here, but the income opportunities are very well available because of the relationships that are established between the Key and the employers in the community. Now, that's not to say that our funding amount would always remain the same. That always depends on our fundraising. But I wouldn't see a major lack of funding from United Way, we are changing our role and changing our focus, again, to more of a self-sustainability model. But that's really to help the citizens at large in the community. And I think your organization already does that.
Thank you, Amy. This next question is for Nancy Haynes. Can you explain how the Adult with Disabilities grant through the Department of Educational Division of Vocational Rehabilitation benefits Citrus County?
I'd be happy to do that, and I may ask for a little bit of help from my partner here, but this is a grant that's available to school districts. And in our district, what we've done is jointly written the grant, and then we're basically, this school district is the flow-through agent. We do the reporting. Teresa Walker's here. She stays on, not Walker, Teresa Flick, stays on top of the reporting that we're required to do. And what it funds is currently 2 teachers and some materials and supplies to allow the center to be able to provide some adult education activities.
I'm going to ask you this next one, too, because I think it kind of does. How is the Citrus Schools advocating no further cuts to this grant?
We work very closely with the Key Center and making sure that they know. Our contact people in Tallahassee let us know when they anticipate. But we've seen a decrease every single year in that grant funding. Not sure we've done such a great job of advocating for that, but I think that goes back to the responsibility we all have to educate our legislators and make sure that they know the value of these programs and the fact that you can't continue to do more with less.
Okay, this question is for Cabot McBride, but I think it also probably goes over to Lon, so the two of you might want to get together with this one. Would the city of Inverness be interested if the state offered financial or other incentives for counties or cities to provide accessible transport for those individuals with developmental disabilities, assisting education, work, or other social activities?
Well, I'll go ahead and handle that initially and then turn this over to Lon. Absolutely, we would be interested in that. And I do think that whenever there is an opportunity for us to be able to get involved in a grant that's going to encourage and allow our citizenry to have more opportunities, that we are going to go ahead and go for that. Lon, do you have a comment?
I think anytime you have something like this, the magic word is partnerships. We talked about groups and being involved in groups, and the groups can go to government agencies and services to be provided. And we would very much, the whole idea is to solve a problem and to fill a need. And if we can combine resources, I'm sure that there will be very few people in opposition to putting together something that had a positive impact on solving a problem.
This one does not have who they want the question to go to, so I'll let you guys fight it out up there. Why does it take so long for some individuals to move off the wait list for the waiver?
Well, I'll go ahead and give this a shot here, even though I'm representing the city of Inverness and not APD. There is a very specific criteria for a person to come off the wait list and onto the waiver. And basically it comes down to this, is that you must be in a situation where your circumstances are life-threatening, that is, your own life as a developmentally disabled person, or you're threatening somebody else's life, or you are a person who is developmentally disabled that has no place to live, or you are pending no place to live. The current circumstances that we have now with the legislature and with funding really makes it a situation, and I'm going to use a rather crude term here, but unless there's, there's blood on the floor or something, there's going to be very little movement when it comes to taking people who are on the wait list and to move them onto the Medicaid waiver. It all comes down to dollars, folks, and I will tell you, the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, we are nothing more than good soldiers. We carry out policy. We carry out the legislative dictates that take place in Tallahassee. We don't go around making individual decisions in that regard. And when parents and guardians and their friends can become aroused and express their righteous indignation for the circumstances of their developmentally disabled loved ones, then when the legislature hears from you, they will go ahead and make a move. Otherwise, forget it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Otherwise, forget it. You've got to get together. You've got to have a collective voice in order to have the legislature appropriate more dollars. Right now, that amount is about $870 million. That's folding money. And yet there are still other people who are waiting in line.
And I'd like to add, I have one son on the waiver, one son off the waiver, on the wait list. And you are not going to start receiving a waiver if you just go up with a story about why you need it. You need to have proof. You need to have documentation. It's not good enough to have the blood on the floor. You have to have pictures of it. You have to have a doctor's report, and you should start, if you plan on having your child at some point receive that waiver, then you need to have a big file of information proving why it's necessary.
And I'd just like to hit again this morning when Barbara Palmer mentioned her 4 focus areas. One was fiscal accountability. And I do think the 2 legislatives that were here this morning, I think we're very impressed with her overall beginning presentation, because the key is, if they come to the legislature this year with a balanced budget, I don't know if they'll give them money this year for the waiting list, but if they're able to keep that, then I think they're going to be more open to providing them with additional money once they have proven themselves that they can be fiscal accountable for and build up that respect. I think that's going to be significant.
I'd just like to add that I heard this morning Suzanne said, do you want to be at the table or on the menu? And I think that's really the position we're in. If we're not at the table and letting them know what our needs are, then we're going to be part of the meal that's on that table.
Thank you. Nancy, keep the mic. This one's for you. How can Citrus County address the needs of those individuals who fall in the gray area, as they do not meet the IQ requirement for state developmental disability service, but they are in need of support services?
Well, while there are students, we've got a little bit of flexibility with gray area. It's a very challenging situation once they hit that 22nd birthday. But we've got a team of experts who are continually looking at what are the resources we have available, how do we best use them? And I think we have a tremendous responsibility. We had a group of students here earlier from our transition academy. I see that they've left, but we have a period of time in their lives where we've completed the educational components for getting the FCAT passed or the alternate assessment. Once that's done, we have to put all of our energies and efforts into preparing them for careers, jobs, even volunteerism that will get them to be out in the community doing the best they can as being adults.
Thank you. Lon, this one's for you. How can the county provide accessible transport on the weekends for those individuals with developmental disabilities assisting education, work, and social activities?
I think it kind of comes down to the demand and the dollars. Right now, we're really not set up to do this, but I can tell you one of the things our county commissioners have been so generous in supporting the need for transportation. I think there's probably imaginative ways that we can accomplish this. I see Teresa Flick out there, and Teresa, you're welcome to jump in here and help us on Saturday. But really, that is something that does come up from time to time, and I would say that I think probably the one thing to realize that we're an operator. We're not really a decision maker. We try to do a good job and utilize the resources that we have for the best good and do an efficient job. We would not have the ability at Citrus County Transit to say we are going to implement Saturday operation. I think that you have to start at a higher level than what we would be. And there's like so many other things. I think the challenge could be solved if it was decided at a higher level than us that it was something that needed to be addressed.
Citrus County School District have developed our clients in job skills. Because of budget cuts, supported employment has declined. A lack of understanding from our business managers about our clients is happening. How can we get our businesses to support our clients for employment?
Well, the United Way doesn't provide direct service, so I think that might be more well appropriate for another person. But are they specifically asking how more businesses would have more job opportunities? Is that the case? Well, I would say that there is an interesting piece there, not necessarily with United Way work, but the Workforce Connection just actually they're releasing findings on Wednesday of their job skills gap forum that they hosted this summer. So that might be an interesting thing for the Key to find out about, or anyone in the community. There is a job skills gap that does exist in the community, and some of the Key clients could be utilized to fill those skills gap. So it might be interesting to find what the findings are when Workforce releases those Wednesday morning at their annual meeting.
Anybody else want to, Nancy?
I was just going to say that at our START meetings, we have a lot of discussions about the fact that we do need to get out there because we've got a lot of small businesses in our community, and they may not be aware of the need for, and we do have folks that even if it was just an on-the-job experience, whether they're on the payroll or not, would give them an opportunity. But we do have some wonderful partnerships with some of the businesses in our community, and they do look after helping our students have an on-the-job experience.
Okay. Stephanie, this one's for you. What existing community resources in Citrus County do you feel should be made available to individuals with developmental disabilities that would help and assist them?
Well, I've always thought that somebody referred to the term silos, that even in Citrus County, we have organizations or groups, and they only work with one population. A lot of the Key Center clients, for instance, are elderly. They're, over 50, or, they're in their late 40s or over 50. And I know that there are a lot of senior services available through the Citrus County Resource Center. So I have always thought that it would be a really good idea if we could just, you know, utilize some of those things, like some of the dinners and the activities at the various senior centers around Citrus County. I know there's one in Lecanto and one in East Citrus. Our family members are, you know, perhaps seniors too, and they're certainly should be eligible for those kinds of things. I know, and somebody touched on it this morning also, that churches have a lot of activities, and I know the Key Center has some wonderful relationships with different churches, like the First Baptist Church in Inverness that has the Love Division. I know our church is working to start a hydroponic gardening program to help with our feeding program. So if there was some way that we could all work together as a community to help our family members access church activities and community activities, I think that would go a long way to solving a lot of problems.
Okay, this one is for Nancy Haynes. How does the Citrus County school system work with parents and guardians to help them with their child's transition out of the school into the community?
Well, we do have our transition academies, and our 3 high schools have programs for students that may or may not meet the developmental disability criteria. But it's the responsibility from the age of 14 that we develop. If a student has an individual education plan, we develop a transition plan. And Mr. Stewart was talking, not Stewart, Mr. Smith, I'm sorry, was talking about the life plan. That's something that particularly our high school and middle school specialists spend a great deal of time trying to help prepare a family to look long term. We frequently say, let's begin with the end in mind. And, you know, while we're very good at our early childhood programs in this district, we also are very good at making sure that from that point, from the time a child's identified until that child turns 22 and is outside of our realm, that we do everything we possibly can to make sure that parents know what the resources are and how they can get actively involved in the transition. And much of that planning takes place at the individual education plan meeting. That is held at least once every year, but can be called more frequently if there's a need for that.
Thank you. This question is from Melissa Walker. What is a Key Center scholarship?
Well, the Key Center Scholarship is kind of what I mentioned before in my general open presentation. We currently provide 70 scholarships. Those are individuals that are on the state waiting list for services that qualify for an APD, for the Home and Community-Based Waiver System. Currently, most of the individuals that we provide are graduates from the local public school system. Majority attend our adult day training program, which is run here Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 2:30 in the afternoon. And a typical scholarship for those type of services, of course, it depends on the need of that individual. If it's, if they require one-on-one or 1 to 5 individuals, can range from $8,400 to about $10,000 a year. We have 15 of those individuals that actually live with us in our residential services. That, of course, requires more funding to supply those scholarships, and those typically range from $25,000 and up, again, depending on the level of service that individual needs. How are the funds derived to be able to provide those scholarships? is our Run for the Money annual fundraiser that we do. We do several activities throughout the year to be able to significantly put those towards those scholarships. In addition, our thrift stores. Our thrift stores have been very beneficial in the community, not only providing services, employment, vocational opportunities for our clients, but also generate a significant amount of income that go back to be able to provide those services. To give the audience a better understanding, that's about a $700,000 commitment to provide those scholarships. Not only our commitment, but organizations that donate to us and also the public to be able to provide that.
Neil, if I could just interrupt for 1 second to underscore some of the comments that Melissa made here. I have an opportunity to see a number of organizations and agencies within this area, and I'm familiar with others throughout a statewide basis. You will find an occasional organization that will have an occasional scholarship. What I'm saying here, a good word for scholarship is free services. It is unheard of within the state of Florida for an agency to do what the Key Training Center does for the developmentally disabled people who are local to our community. I would say this, especially if you are of your retirement years, if you are looking for your loved one to have some sort of an association with the Key Training Center for the long-term future, that means after you're gone, I cannot imagine not leaving the Key Training Center somewhere in the last will and testament that you develop that's going to not only ensure that your child is properly taken care of, but that this agency is properly taken care of. I will tell you, you are blessed beyond measure to live here in Citrus County and have the services of the Key Training Center available to you.
Thank you, Kevin. This question is for Amy Meek. Can you tell us about 211 and how that service might be of an assistance to some of the families here today?
211 is a program that United Way funds in conjunction with the county. And 211 is a phone number that you would dial just like 911 or 411 on your phone. But 211 is an information and referral services hotline that you can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That 211 can provide information in a wide variety of areas, but for this group, I would say that one of the key areas they can provide information to you is on support groups that may benefit you and your family, but also they would be able to refer anyone to find out about where to obtain food or assistance with rent or utilities, also where to find information about jobs, a wide variety of things. Actually, we're bringing in 211 to help facilitate AARP tax prep services in the county because AARP has a very antiquated system right now for scheduling, so we're utilizing that. We're also integrating 211 to be an information source in times of weather disasters for the sheriff's office, and a lot of other things. We're hoping at some point to integrate 211 as a service to be utilized with the transportation system as well. But you can really find a wide variety of information by calling 211, and it's definitely a great number to commit to memory and tell other people about as well. If you know someone that's falling on hard financial times, that's a great resource to share with them. But additionally, there is the piece about support groups, and you can find information through 211 for that.
Thank you. This is for Melissa Walker, and this is a continuation or follow-up on the scholarship discussion. The question is, how do you apply for a scholarship?
Okay. Basically, well, hopefully it would be in coordination because they should be receiving that information if they're already in Citrus County and within the public school system. Actually, I think we have groups that come when it's closer to their graduation date that come to the Key and receive a tour. And some of those people might have the waiver and there are others that are not. At that point, they would then be hooked up with our social worker, which is Jackie Fagan, located on this Lecanto campus, and filling out an application. And basically what we do is we look to make sure that we have the structure internally to be able to meet the need of that child. Typically, at this point, we have not really turned people down for a scholarship. I will say this is the most, actually I say over 70, I think we're at 74 individuals that we're providing scholarships to. So at this point, we haven't turned anybody away. We've tried to work within the system that we have in structure, internal structure, to be able to provide that.
Thank you. Nancy Haynes, this is a question for you. Since many of our students leave school at age 22 without any employment or day programs, is there anything the school district can do to help meet this need, like continuing education, life goals, or employment skills?
Well, technically, under our special policies and procedures, our ability to use the funds that we receive end on the day the student turns 22. So what we do is the best job we can up until that point, and then we continue to develop those strong partnerships with the other agencies and hopefully some of our employers out there. But it is a big challenge.
Okay, this one is for Lon Fry. This is more information you discussed on the transportation for disadvantaged opportunities are limited. How does a developmentally disabled person access the paratransit services? How does the Medicaid service work in Citrus County?
Okay, the Medicaid service, first of all, if you were Medicaid eligible, you would file, through our office, 527-7630, and we would determine your Medicaid eligibility. And if your Medicaid eligibility, then your travel to and from your doctor's appointments, as I said, would be our responsibility if you filled out and did not have other transportation, as far as that goes. As far as applying for transportation disadvantaged, the process is similar. If you call our office, we can fax you or mail you a form. Right now, the eligibility is if your monthly income is $1,200 or less a month, you are eligible for transportation disadvantaged, which your door-to-door trips would be $3 each way, pending approval by our county commission on the rate increase. And as far as, how do you make a reservation? A lot of times you'll call and we will give you a time that we can come and service you. It's a ride-share service. When we come to get you, we'll probably pick up other people in the area and we'll take them to a similar destination. As you can imagine, it takes a long time to map out a route that changes every day. So we do require or ask for 2 business days notice. But if you have a consistent to your travel pattern, you can have a standing order. If you go somewhere the same place or the same travel pattern every Monday, Wednesday, or whatever the travel pattern may be, it's a standing order. Then once that's set up, you only have to call to cancel. And we really need you to call and cancel. That's very important for efficiency of our service.
Thank you. This question is from Alyssa Walker. What is the Key Training Center doing to position itself for the future?
Sorry, Amy had my attention over here. Well, the Key Training Center, we're going to continue to be self-supporting. As I mentioned before, about 14% of our earned income comes from the thrift stores. And in 2011, 2012, we received almost a $200,000 cut. That's when the providers, such as ourselves, received a 4% cut across the board. And this year, with some of the I-budget things that are coming down the line, we're looking at about a $100,000 cut. Of course, we're just seeing how that is going to play out. At this point, we haven't cut services to those individuals that have received cuts in their support plans. We're continuing to provide those services to those individuals. So basically, for us to survive, we have to have an entrepreneurial spirit. And Currently, we have 4 thrift stores in the community. As I mentioned before, they're very essential to not only for providing educational, vocational employment for our individuals, but it also raises over $500,000 that goes back into the key on an annual basis. We're going to strengthen our thrift stores. Hopefully many of you in the audience have been able to shop there. We do feel there's more thrift stores coming into the community, so we're going to try to up the game. We always try to be forward thinking and try to stay on cutting edge, so we foresee those growing. Maybe even the possibility of opening another thrift store down in the Denellen area, because we are serving people that kind of are in that mix between the Marion County and Citrus County. As far as with the state, basically, in my opinion, the state's in a flux. I heard good things this morning. I'm hoping iBudget will be given the opportunity, and we'll be able to see some financial accountability and some stability there. But on the other hand, we have to, again, be forward thinking and stay on the cutting edge, and we have aligned ourselves with 10 other providers in the state of Florida that you mentioned. I think Suzanne Sewell mentioned it this morning about there's some groups of providers that are getting together and are putting together provider service networks. Currently, we're in it's called an ASO. It's an administrative service organization that would be positioned to be a provider service network, where basically what that means is it kind of takes the middleman out of the equation, where us as a provider service network will be able to bring down some of those funds from managed care system and be able to keep those dollars going to direct care versus going to a managed care company for-profits pocket. So, and that was kind of what I mentioned before. We have applied with ACA for some licensing to prepare in the future if that's to go down that road. But bottom line is we'll continue to educate the community on persons with developmental disabilities, advocate for them. Any component that we have as part of the key, even with our fundraisers, we always do an educational component so people understand what their donations are going to. And you know, when you look at our budget as a whole, 18% is huge. And we hope to continue to put efforts to grow that to sustain us into the future.
Thank you. Before we give our speakers one last final their summary, if they want to say anything, I do want to encourage any of you, if you have specific questions, that all of these speakers have said that they're available. We've given you their emails and phone numbers, and they have said that if there are any questions personally, that they would be more than happy to help you. At this time, before we close up our successful day here, if anybody has any final remarks that they would like to say, any more comments?
Yeah, I'd like to just say one comment. I think it's important, even from this morning, there could be several providers, such as the Key Training Center, in the audience today with the home and community-based waiver. And I think it's really important, you as parents, you have such a stronger voice than the Key Training Center does or another provider does. You heard your legislatives this morning say, you need to come tell us, you need to come visit us, you need to share your stories with us, you need to correspond with the other associations. The Key will continue to advocate the best that we can, but we're seen as another provider. So it's more, your voice is stronger than ours. So please, we'll help in every way we can. We do have email, family list, which we try to communicate information to via the regular sending it in the mail. But it's very important that you use your voice and the voice of your child to help communicate to those that have the purse strings to your child's care.
I'd like to add that all parents, and please, any parents who aren't here, if you know somebody, tell them, there are several things that they really need to know. They need to know that they're going to have to apply for Medicaid at some point. They're going to, well, age 18 is the trigger. You know, pretty much up until age 18, if you're a good parent, you're doing what needs to be done. However, Medicaid is important because it pays for all of the services that we're talking about. When your child turns 18, you need to start thinking about guardianship, because parents are so surprised when they realize that they can't make any more decisions. And then with that comes applying for Social Security. So a lot of times parents don't want to think that their child needs to do that. But yeah, they do. And so if you have any questions about any of those, call any of the people on those contact lists or me. You know, I'd love to be able to put you in touch with whoever you need.
Okay, thank you very much again. Thank you all for attending.